to Black Pill Digest. I am your host, Sean McCann. Tonight, we will be joined by Will Keller, a very good friend of ours. Welcome, Will.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you guys.
Awesome. James, I guess here's your face. Here, wait. There. Hello.
It's
Thank you.
it's me and the beard. We're in the building.
That's great. Awesome. All right. And James will be joining us very shortly, my co-host, James Cordiner. And we also invited another guest, and we will see if he shall arrive or not. But either way, we are here today. And the topic of discussion is the attack on our children. In episode 1, we established that it is a war on humanity. We got into the nitty-gritty about what it is, what's happening. So we really took a look at it. And today's episode, we're going to be looking at how they attack our children. Our children is the core of our self, and it is what is projected into the future. And these people want to own the future, so they want to own our children too. And today we're going to be getting into how they do that and how they've done that over the years. And there's new tactics these days, and the technocracy is different, and the war is being waged on many levels. So we have some clips, and Will, if you don't mind, I'm going to share a clip or two.
Go for it, brother.
All right. So let's get started with this right here.
My name is Michelle Forcier, and I have a medical degree from University of Connecticut, residency, University of Utah Pediatrics, and I've worked for a number of different Planned Parenthoods for 20 years. I do advanced contraception and abortion, as well as gender hormones, and sort of looking at the whole sort of schema of gender, sex, and reproductive justice.
So you've done a lot of work in this field. Could you just start by telling us?
Sure.
At what age can a child first begin to transition into another gender or identify themselves as a gender different from how they were born?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's research and data that show that babies and infants understand differences in gender. Some children figure out their gender really early, and the reason why we say, oh, that's interesting or important is because they're figuring out their gender identity is not necessarily congruent with their sex assigned at birth.
When the doctor sees the penis and says, this is a male, has the sex of male, that's an arbitrary distinction?
Telling that family, based on that little penis, that your child is absolutely 100% male identified, no matter what else occurs in their life, that's not correct.
So what is gender affirmation care? You're a big proponent of. If we walk through, a child is sitting down with you, is questioning their gender. What's the gender affirmation process?
Affirmation means that as a pediatrician, as someone who says my job is to provide the best medical care for you, is I need to listen really carefully. And how I put it in words for kids so that they can understand it is, tell me your story. Where have you been in terms of your gender and your gender identity? Where are you right now? And more excitingly, where would you like to be in the future?
Have you ever met a 4-year-old who believes in Santa Claus?
Mm-hmm.
So this is someone who believes that a fat man is traveling through the sky on a flying reindeer at lightning speed, coming down his chimney with presents.
Yeah.
Would you say that this is someone who maybe has a tenuous grasp on reality?
They have an appropriate 4-year-old handle on the reality that's very real for them.
Agreed. But Santa Claus is real for them, but Santa Claus is not actually real.
Yeah, well, but Santa Claus does deliver their Christmas presents.
Well, yeah, but he's not real, though.
To that child, they are.
When I see a child who, believes in Santa Claus, and then let's say this is a boy and he says, I'm a girl.
Mm-hmm.
This is someone who can't distinguish between fantasy and reality, so how could you take that as a reality?
I would say that as a pediatrician and as a parent, I would say how wonderful my 4-year-old and their imagination is.
Sex is unchanging. It's based on chromosomes. 99.999% of the cells in the body are marked either male or female. Gender, on the other hand, is a perception. It's a feeling. It's a way of identifying. It's an experience. Okay, that's subjective.
It sounds like what you're saying is that if a man is male but thinks of himself as a woman, he's not actually a woman?
That's correct.
Male gametes. That's what makes me male.
No, your sperm don't make you male.
Then what does?
It's a constellation.
In reality, in truth, okay?
Whose truth are we talking about?
The same truth that says we're sitting in this room right now, you and I.
No, you're not listening.
If I see a chicken laying eggs and I say that's a female chicken laying eggs, did I assign female, or am I just observing a physical reality that's happening in the world?
Does a chicken have gender identity? Does a chicken cry?
Well,
Does a chicken commit suicide? Let's
does that have to do
frame
with-
it, because you're trying
The chicken has sex like any biological
chicken has
organism.
an assigned gender, but a chicken doesn't have a gender identity.
So we assign female to chickens when they lay eggs?
We assume they're female if they lay eggs.
Now, I was told that really everyone agrees with the current approach to gender and transitioning kids and all of that. And if you don't agree, that you're a dinosaur and a bigot. So are you a bigoted dinosaur?
I'm not bigoted and I'm not a dinosaur. I am rooted in reality and in science.
Whose reality?
There's one reality. You're a parent, right? Okay? It's perfectly normal for 10 years and up. Here's just one page I want you to see here.
For 10 and up, huh?
It's unspeakable what these people have done to our children.
When did that start? When was it decided that we need to start teaching kids about this stuff at such a young age?
So I'll answer that with one word: Kinsey. Kinsey was a social reformer. He wanted to rid society of Judeo-Christian values when it came to sexuality. And he worked very hard to do that, and I would say he succeeded.
Kinsey would be very happy with our culture today. His idea was that children are sexual from birth, that we're all inherently sexual creatures from cradle to grave. He believed that true happiness is found in a life of perverse sexual experimentation, no matter the age.
What came out is that his research was fraudulent.
Kinsey based his fraudulent conclusions on data he collected from convicted sex offenders and child molesters. His research was conducted in prisons, not everyday America. He also performed horrific sexual experiments on children, some under the age of 1. His most influential book, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male, contains an infamous chart called Table 34, which documents the orgasms of very young kids, including babies as young as 5 months old.
But the most disturbing evidence comes from Kinsey's so-called scientific tables, wherein he describes the sexual responses of young children.
When I was reading Kinsey's book in the first place, and I looked at the tables, table 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and these were tables with ages of children on the left-hand side, and then orgasm in one panel, and timed orgasm, time of orgasm in the next one.
In Kinsey's tables 31 through 34, he documented the timed orgasms of children as young as 2 months old, recording their responses down to the 10th of a second. The findings are so extreme that one child, a 4-year-old, is said to have had 26 orgasms within a 24-hour period. For Dr. Reisman, the obvious question was, where did Kinsey get such information?
And I looked at those charts and graphs. I can't tell you how long it took me to try to process what I was seeing. I said, this is the torture of children.
At the base of Table 31, Kinsey tells us that the data is based on actual observation of 317 males. Then on page 177 of the male volume, Kinsey writes, orgasm is in our records for a female babe of 4 months. But how would anyone recognize such a response in a young child? Kinsey wrote that among pre-adolescent boys and among younger females, orgasm is not so readily recognized, partly because of the lack of ejaculate.
And so I said, what did this man, this Kinsey, call an orgasm? Right? I mean, it's an obvious question, isn't it? I mean, first of all, this was not possible, but second of all, what did he call? Well, I saw he documented it on page 160 and 161 in Kinsey's book, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male. He described specifically what he called an orgasm amongst these children.
Kinsey defined orgasm for pre-adolescent children with the following description: a gradual and sometimes prolonged build-up to orgasm, which involves still more violent convulsions of the whole body, heavy breathing, groaning, sobbing, or more violent cries, sometimes with an abundance of tears, especially among younger children.
And he said there were 6 categories. He called them 6 categories of orgasm, and he had category 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And included in these categories of what he called an orgasm were screaming, writhing in pain, hysterics, especially among younger children. He put that in parentheses, especially among younger children, parentheses. He said that the children had convulsions. Those were his words. He said they fainted. He said they struck the partner. He called it the partner. This is the man who's raping the child. Okay. They struck the partner and tried to get away. And he said that those were all examples for him of orgasm.
Kinsey made it clear that this data was supplied by adult observers, who were defined as pedophiles by Kinsey's own team members, as you will hear later on. Kinsey wrote, some males suffer excruciating pain and may scream. The males in the present group, by which he meant pre-adolescent boys, become similarly hypersensitive before the arrival of actual orgasm, will fight away from the partner, and may make violent attempts to avoid climax, although, he said, they derive definite pleasure from the situation. Kinsey biographer James H. Jones was a 1998 Pulitzer Prize finalist for his biography on Kinsey. In the Yorkshire documentary, Jones had this to say about Kinsey's description of child orgasm.
If you read those words, what he's talking about is kids who are screaming, kids who are protesting in every way they can the fact that their bodies, that their persons are being violated.
At that point, reading that, I said, the only person who could write that would be, number one, a pedophile or a pederast, because these were boys, was homosexual abuse of boys, and a sadomasochist. That is, the only human being in the world who could call an orgasm something that involved people throwing up, I mean, having convulsions, fainting, screaming, crying. The only person who could do that is someone who experienced that themselves. And that had to be a sadomasochist. And the only person who could apply their sadomasochism to an infant and a child would be a pederast, a rapist. And that's what Kinsey did in that book.
Kinsey's own sadomasochistic tendencies have been documented by a number of biographers. James Jones revealed that Kinsey once climbed into a bathtub and circumcised himself with a pocket knife without the benefit of anesthesia. Another account of Kinsey's extreme self-abuse came about when his research was under investigation. Jones reports that after the Rockefeller Foundation withdrew his funding, Kinsey went to a basement, tied one end of a rope to an exposed ceiling pipe and the other end around his scrotum, then stood on a chair and jumped off.
The abuse that he inflicted on his organs, on his sexual organs, were very directly identified in his death. That was orchitis. That was a serious inflammation and disease that he inflicted upon himself that was basically involved in his final death.
Model penal code that was adopted just after 1955 was based on Kinsey's research.
This is a flow chart I put together to describe how the Kinsey research gutted American laws. Through the American Law Institute, ALI, the American Law Institute Model Penal Code, 1955. That was where protections were then removed for women and children from American law system. The U.S. justice system from 1948 to today, that's what this is about.
After publishing his reports, Kinsey traveled the country, giving lectures at universities and testifying before lawmakers. He was received as the leading scientific expert in the world on human sexuality. In particular, he discussed laws concerning sex offenders and the education of children.
Of children, he said 100% of are orgasmic from birth. Therefore, children can benefit from sex with adults and even incest, so that which is illegal. So we need to lower the age of consent. He was working toward making everything legal, but that's all right. Children need early explicit school sex education since they're sexual from birth, which was illegal at the time. Now it's everywhere. They need masturbation and hetero and homosexual acts to be taught to them, which was illegal, and now it's being taught. And about parole, Kinsey said that sex offenders rarely repeat sex crimes. Therefore, all sex offenders should be paroled, which is exactly what started to take place.
Part of Kinsey's defense of pedophiles was that children were not really harmed by sexual contact with adults. Therefore, it made no sense to incarcerate pedophiles for lengthy prison terms.
1950, Rockefeller funded the American Law Institute Model Penal Code. 1952, a Harvard Law Review called for a code to change our sex laws in accordance with what Kinsey had objectively found. And then in 1955, the code was created and sent out to all legislators in the country via these important people, judge, lawyers, sociologists, lawyers, and so forth. And from there, that went the ALI model, the sex offenses section, sent to states all over the country, adopted all or in part beginning in 1956 here and moving on to Illinois, to Minnesota and so forth, and all other states of the Union.
As Dr. Reisman noted, the Model Penal Code was financed by the Rockefeller Foundation. Not coincidentally, the Rockefeller Foundation also financed the research of Alfred Kinsey.
But instead of suffering the consequences for his heinous actions, he was and still is celebrated by academia and Hollywood. His ideas form the foundation for sexual education in public schools today. How do we get from this to you can choose your own gender?
Okay, well now we have another very important character, and his name was John Money.
John Money was a psychologist and professor at Johns Hopkins University. Gender ideology was his brainchild. In fact, he coined the terms gender identity and gender roles. And according to Money, babies are gender neutral at birth, and ultimately environment determines whether a person is a man or a woman.
Money was telling the world about his theory that a boy could be raised as a girl and do just fine, and vice versa.
And so Money tried out his theory on two young twin boys, the Reimer twins.
When the twins were 8 months old and they went to be circumcised, the first twin, whose name was Bruce, something went wrong with the machinery and his penis was burnt off. They stopped and didn't do a second circumcision on the other twin, as you might imagine. And the parents, of course, didn't know what to do. How are they going to raise this child?
John Money convinced Bruce's parents to transition him into a girl. Money also conducted sexually abusive experiments on the twins throughout their childhood, including forcing them to simulate sex acts on each other.
He reported up to the age of 10 that this was a complete success. Well, it wasn't true.
The results were a disaster. Bruce could never fully accept his female identity. Eventually, his parents told him the truth, and he chose to transition back to a boy, taking the name David. As an adult, David spoke out about the abuse and the damage done to him by John Money.
The girls would do their things with their Barbies and things like that, and that wouldn't interest me. Mm-hmm. And things such as trucks and building forts and, getting to the odd fist fight and climbing trees. That's the kind of stuff that I like, but it was unacceptable, so I'd never...
As a girl?
As a girl, I had no place to fit in.
The trauma that he and his brother and his entire family went through left deep scars. His brother died of an overdose when he was 38, and then David committed suicide.
There was never a retraction or an apology from John Money. Instead, his ideas were adopted by mainstream psychology, and they form the basis of gender ideology today. Why don't more people know about John Money and Alfred Kinsey?
Evidently, there are forces that don't want this information out.
Well, this information is getting out. We're here to do that. Welcome, James Cordiner. You just arrived, and welcome to first James. Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, and welcome to Johnny Cirucci. Thank you for joining us today.
Sean, what a friggin' nightmare, man. What a nightmare. I can't believe that I lost my Facebook login information, and the most simple rudimentary fixes for that were nothing was working. It was absolutely, I called my wife to help.
We're glad you're here. We're glad
Two of us are sitting there. I could not believe it.
Okay. Well, we're thankful that you're here now. You just joined us in the middle of a clip where we discussed, it lays out that today's what is the kids today are like in a soup that was created by a sadistic pedophile. And then later, another person who thought that he could toy with humanity like it's clay in a botched circumcision, which obviously should never have happened in the first place. They figured, oh, whatever, we'll raise him like this because there is no, humans are just clay computers that we can just program. They had no, it's a very materialistic, satanic, viewpoint. And in any case, we see how that turned out for them. So they divorced the children from truth in as far back as the very beginning of childhood. They tell them what is real is not real, and your childhood imagination is fine. That applies to Santa as well as your, objective reality of truth. All of that is to play with, and it's whose truth, that's how the person who Matt Walsh was interviewing in his wonderful documentary, What is a Woman? And also there were clips of Judith Reisman, who just recently passed away. Rest in peace, Judith Reisman. She did great work in this world, and she wrote a book about Kinsey and his influence on society, and where the root of it, who funded him, and I injected that into the clip so that we get all of that information right at the beginning. And sorry for being so long-winded about it, but let's start with James. What do you have to say first here?
Well, it's pretty cut and dry. It's right. The what seems to be going on here is a complete and total just hijacking of a person's ability to really self-actualize and to come into their own on their own. At the beginning of this conversation, I would really just like to say that this isn't about having the freedom to live your life the way that you would choose to live it in a free world. This isn't about getting in the way of that. This is about reinforcing the idea that each of us needs to tread our own path and find our own way in life, unadulterated, freely. To put it in more simple terms, we can't have people out there grooming kids. It's not right. It's just not right. It is an act of violence.
Right.
You are stealing their opportunity to learn how to exist in this in reality on their own, and that's just to me. There's really nothing wrong with how an adult grows up. If somebody grows up and they're like, like, I've always just felt this way, then yeah, whatever. Who am I to judge? Acceptance and tolerance and all that good stuff. Like, I'm totally on board for that. Like, I don't care. So long as you're not causing harm to anybody else, I don't care what you do. If you're not doing wrong, you're practicing your rights. But if you're getting in the way of a child being able to like grow up and experience, life on their own terms, and if you're getting in the way of like parents really trying to, raise a child correctly, if the parents aren't harming them, or all these different circumstances aren't being played out, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That like what you're essentially doing is you're grooming kids and you're brainwashing them into being some weird sex crazed nut job later on in life, with doing things that they can't reverse, doing things that are really terrible for the human body. And then at the same time,
it's an attack
to the kids. Like while the kids are doing their kid thing, they can't choose to like leave the school where the drag queen is doing drag queen story hour. They can't get up and leave if they want. They're not there voluntarily. They're being coerced into doing these things. You bring them to a family friendly drag show and you let your kids hand money to a drag queen. What are you, fucking nuts? What are you, nuts?
Right. Exactly.
Like it's like,
and it's participating in the larger
to a strip club. Hold on. It's like bringing a child to a strip club and letting the fucking your 8-year-old kid get grinded up on by whoever's up on stage. It's the exact same. It's the exact same thing. It really is. Like, it's just the clothes are still on. There's clips out there. There's too many to really bring to light tonight because we would be here all night. And like, honestly, like, I don't even care about drag queens either, but leave kids out of it. Like, leave kids out of it. What are you doing? You're bringing kids, because guess what? At the end of the day, what happens is that these people know that their ideology is stupid, that it's going to die out on its own, and that it's not as big as they're making it out to be. The amount of people that are actually living a life like this is so small, but they have a really loud voice for some reason. But guess what? What I'm really trying to get at is that like, they know that if they don't go after kids, that their ideology is going to die out. So because they're not having kids on their own. Largely, they're largely transsexual people do not have the ability to have kids on their own.
We get that,
So like, what's going on here is they go after other people's kids. They're coming after, and they do it through public school. They do it with the government assistance. It's disgusting. And it needs to stop.
Right. And it's like this is like an already a satanic. It's like a satanic vibe that's already in effect. And when these people, when people give in and comply and agree to this type of thing, it is grooming the next generation. It's automatically happening just because everything is flooded in this Kinsey material of like, and Kinsey was a Crowleyite. And Crowley said that all the kids should see every sex act before they're like 7 or whatever. It's like it is part of the mind control. It is how they demoralize and separate the child from his body. It's to cause dissociation. And when we agree, then that is, the whole society is grooming the kids. So like, if you are, if you put the $10 in your kid's hand to go put in a stripper's thing, like, it's still a stripper. And it's even worse. It's like a satanic stripper. It's opposite of what it's saying it is. Yeah, the satanic mirror is another thing. So, Will, tell us, what do you think about that first clip?
That whole documentary was done very well, and it's it's what's really going on is, and like you said, Sean, about, it's disassociation at a very early age. It's trauma-based mind control, and it's propagating the ideology of relativism. And I mean, the theory of relativity in general, right? This is a theory. Sure, some things are relative, but not reality, not truth. But this is being propagated, and like even the lady said, right? Oh, whose truth? If you can distort truth, that's the game changer, right? That's you're getting to the root, because then nothing has meaning, nothing has purpose. Communication fails and crumbles, and distorts actual objective reality.
Right.
And this is why the social engineers want to put the wedge between child and parents as early as possible. This agenda has been going on for a long time. We can see it, in entertainment and in culture many, many years ago, right? With, sex sells, this kind of thing, sexualizing just people in general, and but using it as a tool of propagating and promoting what has led up to this type of ideology. And it's deplorable. So, I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
it,
It started
it's
with Dolly Parton, and now look at what it is. You know what I mean?
And
exactly,
one more
exactly.
thing,
Please,
just to
James.
kick in real quick. I'm sorry. Well, good to see
No, go
you,
for it.
Will, buddy. Good to see
Yeah,
you.
likewise,
It's been a
brother.
while,
Awesome.
and nice to meet you, Johnny. But
Same here, James.
before anybody that's listening to this, either live or on the replay, don't get it twisted. This isn't a one-sided debate. We're not going after one side of your stupid political, your political, teams there, or whatever you want to call it. Like, this happens. Like, think about the little beauty pageants that they send their daughters to. That's Republicans, and all these trannies, they go after the like the Democrats do the one way, the Republicans do the other way. It's a big, huge system of getting in the way of kids living freely and being able to self-actualize. And it's all government. It's their goal. It's even when they're not doing harm, that we perceive the total, like the totality of people, like that mass amount of people out there, the way that they perceive harm is not exactly the correct way. But even when you're like doing things as giving your kids up to putting them in the public education system, government indoctrination camps, like, it's still, you're letting somebody else kind of do put the programming in there.
Right.
So it's not just about this one piece of the pie, it's about the whole thing. And the big message here is that there's large groups of people out there that have in mind to brainwash your kids into doing things that are completely satanic. And with that, I yield.
Johnny, what do you think about that?
I think y'all are a bunch of just wound too tight. Y'all need to loosen up. Come on. What's a little strip club or a little tranny story hour for your 5-year-old? Come on. Guys are square. What is going on? All right, so listen. Here's to me, this is the bigger agenda. In no way, shape, or form do I consider this coming from the transsexual community or the homosexual community. This absolutely comes from what I call the satanic Luciferian Jesuit elite, in the same way that mandatory vaccines. This is no different to me. This is no different to me than the mandatory vaccines. This is a desire to hamstring, kill off, sicken, enslave any possible future danger to the satanic machine. And that
exactly
the sad fact is that the ones that they fear the most, whether they're right or wrong, the ones they fear the most are resolute, well-adjusted, disciplined males. And so the agenda is to take those future enemies and destroy them now, to fill them with, heaven only knows, some sort of
myocarditis,
nanoparticulate markers.
Right. Yeah.
Nanoparticulate markers that could be used for some sort of advanced weapon, where it's not that really
Who knows what?
advance
Yeah, right.
of nanoparticulate in your system that a weapon can pick up. Okay,
Yeah.
this guy's got graphene oxide in him, and he's the one we want. Zap
Right.
him. It's
Red
not that
team,
hard.
blue team, red team, blue team. That's
Exactly. It's not that
right.
hard. Same thing with this agenda is to
Right.
take children through the mandatory education system. Now, if you are allow your child to go into this meat grinder, this mental, emotional, and physical meat grinder of education. First of all, there's a lot of people that don't have a choice. There's a lot of people that don't have the money. They can't manage it any other way. But those who can, if there's anything you can do to try and take care of your kids yourself, you will be saving them a lot.
Yeah.
You will be saving them. These bastards are going to bleed you no matter what with the property taxes. That's a whole nother show where Johnny says don't pay taxes.
Right.
But the bottom line is this is not a transgender agenda. This is not a homosexual agenda. This is a satanic, Luciferian, billionaire, Jesuit elite agenda to destroy tomorrow's enemies. The good kids that have had enough, that are picking up, the good people of China right now that are picking up torches and pitchforks. They are trying to cut them off now and do irreparable harm to them now.
Right.
I also have take on Judith Reisman and Alfred Kinsey, but I'll shut up for now.
Oh, okay. Wonderful.
Funny thing about Kinsey, while you mentioned him, all right, like for anyone out there listening, if you think that idea came and went back like 70 years ago, then you're wrong. And I'm going to share something right now to kind of bring that into the modern day. So
thank you, James,
you're welcome
for sharing that.
And so what we have here is an article from the Daily Mail. We can all see this, right? I'm still not.
Yep.
Okay. Planned Parenthood executive. Oh, let's date this right off the bat. The 2nd of December, 2022. So it is very, very recent. Planned Parenthood executive director claims children are born sexual and advocates porn literacy lessons for older students and sex education from kindergarten. So let's put a name to the face. Let's put a name to the face there. That's Bill Taverner, and he's this guy that's propagating this. Executive director of Planned Parenthood Center for Sex Education, located in New Jersey, Bill Taverner said, "We are all sexual beings from birth to death." Taverner has also been advocating for porn literacy for certain age groups, as well as comprehensive sex education for kindergarten to 12th grade students. While Taverner agrees that a lot of porn is wrong, but added that there is good stuff out there as well. The sexuality education advocate said he'd never wanted pornography to be the primary source of sex education, but instruction needs to adapt. The comments have been slammed on social media, some describing the beliefs as incredibly vile and pedophile thinking. So, we can't go and, read the whole article here,
that is very interesting, James.
It's very interesting because it's like it's not an old idea. I mean, it started out a long time ago, but it's still being brought out today. It's essentially the same thing that Kinsey was saying. In fact, it's very close to the exact thing that he was saying without a little bit of the gratuitous nature of what exactly Kinsey was saying. This guy's coming at it from like a soft kind of angle. But
it's funny because Kinsey was saying the exact thing that Crowley was saying. And Crowley created the reality that we have given to us today. So that all makes sense. And he was paid for by Rockefeller money. And then you can see how he abused himself when that Rockefeller money dried up. He, as she said, Judith Reisman described him to be a pedophile sadomasochist. And he explained his thinking in a book titled Sexuality and Behavior in the Human Male. And it was printed in 1948. And that has been, for some reason, that's been printed in black and white. And yet it has been fast-tracked and allowed, and the system has opened the door to it, and now it is in every household, And people think that they can't. Oh, I can't teach my kids. I got to go to work. you know. Meanwhile, that the entire future is being stolen by them, and there's, like Will said, they're divorcing them from the truth at such an early age. Then they can be programmed by the TV and the VR, whatever else they plan on doing with that technocracy. What do you think about that, Will?
Yeah, man. It's and I really like what Johnny and James said, because this is another dialectic where they're trying to pit, the left and the right, two sets of people. One side just needs to play into the dialectic, and it creates that back and forth, right? So it's good to kind of lay the foundation, and on two levels. One, people need to understand that there is a subset of people, psychopaths, that are advanced psychologists that understand the human psyche and how reality operates, and they understand karmic retribution, and they're going to tell people what they're doing, right? They're going to put it out there, and those with the eyes and the ears to see and hear can understand and opt out and not participate, right? And say no. But the majority of people excuse me, tacitly agree or go with it. And so we're standing on the outside of that, right? It's not left or right. The state is the issue. Right. The ideology that there has to be this control system, the belief in human authority, that's a mind virus. Right. But ultimately, and then I'll say for parents too, right? I mean, ideally, unschooling, homeschooling is what you want to shoot for. But guess what? The norm nowadays is co-parenting. In an ideal situation where parents are together under the same roof, that's awesome. That would be ideal. But majority of people like myself, we're co-parenting, and that can be extremely difficult. But still, if your kids are in some kind of public schooling, or whatever that may be, you are still their parents, meaning you still have that influence. And a lot of parents, their kids are in school 8 hours a day, and they kind of check out the rest of the time. It's so schooling in that system ends up being the primary influencer in a child's life, especially at a young age. And culture is the strong arm of tyranny and mind control, and you add that into the pot. So it's a huge dynamic, and it's an important one, because like Johnny was saying, you have to disable the men, especially for the future, right? I mean, the men are the strength. And if you can put that down, if you can feminize men and make them submissive and make them cowardly and almost invert the male aspect, right? Then the future for all out overt slavery will be very easy to take.
Yeah.
We have a comment here that I think that all four of us need to kind of address, from Angela Green. I would like to show this. She says that the Hermetic principles need to say sex, not gender. The translation is wrong. First of all, I really appreciate the interaction between us and the audience. This is wonderful. It says gender because the word didn't start existing, because John Money didn't make up the word. Right, that word means to generate. It's the generative principle in nature. So like that's why it says gender in the Kybalion and within the Hermetic principles. It has nothing to do with sex. It has to do with female and male. Like, what would you say, Will?
It's two pillars.
Mental energy. But also understanding that it also does mean in the physical realm, and you add polarity to that. We do have male and female. It does not imply that we are both biological male and female. It's referring to the mental faculties of masculine and feminine energies, characteristics. You could look this as the left and right hemisphere of the brain, and also, but in the physical domain, the manifested domain, there is male and female.
Right.
Excellent. And we can see this through nature, right? We can see this. You can see this in the animal kingdom, in the plant kingdom. So but Correct. Now that we're going through this this gender identity crisis type of agenda, right? I mean, for sure, a lot of people. I have a shirt that has the Hermetic principles on there, and I get the top comment is,
Yeah.
"Well, what do you mean by gender?" And I have to go and
It's a
explain it. Like,
trigger. Yeah.
it kind of, yeah, it can be. So,
Wow. Well,
I
I'm glad you're
understand what
wearing the
Angela's
truth.
saying.
I'm glad you're wearing the truth on your shirt, man, because they
Yeah,
can't
for
avoid
sure.
that shit, when it's there in their face. They have to see it, you know?
Yeah, and and it's a good opportunity for me to kind of explain and dive deeper that,
That's right.
the Hermetic principles, this is the unseen metaphysical realm.
Right.
And
It's
a
the
lot of
nature of
people have
reality.
a hard time with metaphysical, especially the scientistic, the
Right.
materialist, atomist
Right.
institute of today, where matter is prime.
Right.
Hmm.
And that is the atheism has been, the science has divorced itself from creation at all. You have to believe it's an accident that this whole world, like,
Hmm.
and like you have to believe it's an accident that all of your molecules work together properly, like they just fell into place like that. I mean, it's so ridiculous. But anyway, so you got to believe the one lie, and then everything else makes sense. Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, okay. So like that's how they get us to agree. And then if they can hit us as a kid, where truth is not even what you are as your body is not reality, you can change that, whatever. Like, there was a woman who got arrested and put in jail because her kid got a tattoo because he's not old enough to have a tattoo, and they can't make that decision yet. Meanwhile, the same state allows gender, you know, chopping
Hormone
up,
blockers.
right? That
Hmm.
and even bottom surgery, like this, just because whatever. Oh, it's what they feel like they want to do, you know, and
Total relativity, man.
exactly right. Johnny, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a crazy, disturbing story that James found. And there's bigger questions to be asked. What is Planned Parenthood doing
Yeah,
pushing sex on
right,
5-year-olds? You would think that maybe they expect to gain from sexualized children, increasing their sexual activity, and then we have more unwanted children. More unwanted children means more abortion. More abortion means more money from the vaccine industry, who uses slaughtered baby for their research and for the vaccines. And it's funny to them to load the vaccines with slaughter baby and then jam them into us. Of course, Planned Parenthood, and I don't know how much you guys are familiar with me and my work. I hope I don't get on your nerves because I see everything going back to Rome. And I'm gonna point out names, places, and dates. Margaret Sanger behind Planned Parenthood,
yeah,
with her Roman Catholic background, and also the Reisman Kinsey stuff. Let's see if I can share this. Okay, this is from my third book, Eaters of Children. Nobody knows about Kinsey, that Kinsey had his children baptized and confirmed in Roman Catholicism, that he met his pornographer Samuel Stewart at DePaul University, and Stewart was an instructor at Jesuit Loyola, Jesuit John Carroll in Montana, and also at DePaul. So Judith was, of course, Jewish, and she was actually a Vatican expert. She was called to the Vatican. Why? Because she was completely missed these connections. Kinsey is blown up as this aberration that has popped up out of nowhere. Aberration for those of us who are offended by him masturbating infants. The weirdos like us that were offended by that. He's not. He was absolutely part of this satanic system.
right.
And as a quick aside, he
Kinsey
utilized. Go ahead.
Kinsey he organized camping trips with his church, and they would stand around and masturbate.
He,
Go ahead.
Also with the Boy Scouts, he was,
Right.
and I frequently point out that Sir Robert Baden Powell was a pederast, which was an adult. It is an adult male that lusts after young boys. The founder of the co-founder of the Boy Scouts was a pederast. The whole purpose of the Boy Scouts is the entire time. So why they're Chapter 11 as a result of sex scandals of scout masters. And just a few years ago, I can remember when it was huge that homosexual men were being barred. There was a huge push, a huge
to accept the homos.
Yeah, to accept homosexual men. Now, again, I'm not anti-homosexual. That what's going on there was that there were men attracted to young boys,
Right.
and regardless of how they identify themselves, this was access for them.
Exactly.
So,
and that's what happens with all those points in all those access points, at school or daycares or, that's where they gravitate. That's, you're not going to find your average pedophile isn't going to work at Walmart as a janitor.
No, but you can find them at the daycare at West Point,
Exactly.
where they were conducting satanic experiments. They were raping kids, torturing small animals to traumatize them.
At the Presidio as well.
Presidio at the same time. West Point and Presidio at the same time. But you've got good federal prosecutors like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Cross-Dressing Giuliani, a Roman Catholic cross-dresser. I don't mean redundant. Roman Catholic who's twice trained by the Christian Brothers, who was willing to take those abominations and sweep them under the carpet as a federal prosecutor. Now, you look, how they wave the flag, okay? I've been 20 years in the military. How they wave the flag. Thank you for protecting our freedom. What did I didn't protect your freedom. You're more slave now than you ever were before. Imagine how the American people would be a little bit annoyed and perturbed to find out that the children of soldiers were raped in satanic experiments, and the lawyer of Donald Trump helped sweep it under the carpet, and that's what catapulted him into being mayor of New York City during 9/11, when we had the engineering miracle of two civilian airliners pancaking 3 skyscrapers in their own footprint.
Thank you, Johnny. That was
so. I have that story. Let me share that real quick. So anyone out there is like, hey, what is he talking about? Mom got arrested in New York. Mom got arrested after son shows school nurse's new tattoo.
Thank you, James.
The mother of a 10-year-old boy was arrested in Highland, New York, and this took place. This story was published December 7th, 2022. And that was in New York. So, so we don't go through the whole article, but we want to make sure that it's shown so people can.
And was the child given to child predator services?
Let's see.
So they took the mother, and now the child has no guardian. And now
the child is in the foster care now.
There we go.
Because
he's being trafficked right now.
Yes.
Over a tattoo. Much better. The child had a tattoo. Let's take him away from his mother and put him into a system that will give him to some good pedophiles.
Let's see right here. Let's pull it back up real quick. All right. It says Crystal Thomas was charged with endangering the welfare of a child after a school nurse discovered her son's new tattoo. His name in large block letters, and reported it to school officials. Thomas faces up to 1 year in prison if convicted, and her 2 children were both taken away by Child Protective Services.
Got him.
The tattoo artist was also arrested. So these people, you can go and give your 8-year-old or your 10-year-old, gender reassignment surgery. The president of the United States is up on stage saying we need to affirm these, we need to do all this affirmation and everything like that. But a tattoo is like, whoa. It's like, actually, a tattoo is more reversible than your gender reassignment surgery. Trust me, I have a lot of tattoos. I've looked into it.
And then try listening to somebody who wants to go back after a gender reassignment.
Yeah,
those people are very sad. The females. I'm sorry, this is not the thing. The females have to grow another appendage off of their arm to be removed and applied. I mean, it is, and what the males have to do, it has to be inverted and tucked inside and held open so it doesn't seal shut because it's an open wound that they have to walk around with for months. I mean, it is trauma. That's the same reason they circumcise little babies, because it's such a trauma to their brains. And I mean, they love what circumcision makes such dissociative slaves. Oh, let's see if we can chop the whole rest of it off. And if you look back into history, if you look at the Cybele cult, the Sibylle cult of pre-Rome, it came Magna Mater is the cult in Rome, the Great Mother, and she's the grandmother and consort of Attis, who chops off his junk. She puts him under a schizophrenic stupor, and he goes crazy and cuts off his own genitalia. And the blood spills and makes purple violets, right? And it was under an evergreen tree. And that's why people bring an evergreen tree into their house every December, because it is a symbol to Attis. They hang the purple violets on the evergreen tree. This is it's a continuation of the Sibylle cult. And the females were whores to the cult, and the males had to cut off their cock and balls to become a priestess in the cult. And it's the same cult of Ishtar and Inanna. It's the same oldest religion. And I think that Rome now is a continuation of this ancient Cybele cult. And that's why they're pushing, one of the main reasons why they're pushing the chopping off, because that is part of the rites of the people, the cult of Cybele.
Let me tell you
Rites of
how
passage.
recent they are practicing this, Sean. Still practicing to this day. You all can look this up for yourselves. Look up the now past personality Eddie Van Halen, Roman Catholic, narrowly escaped castration from his unique Catholic cult there. I think it was in Holland, somewhere in Europe. Look that up.
Okay.
Eddie Van Halen narrowly escaped castration.
Well, and I firmly believe that castration is one of their tools, and I think that is why the genital mutilation is such an important thing in what I speak about, because the mind and the body are intimately connected as one, and if they can traumatize the body, then that can cause effects in the mind that they wish for the future. And if they can attack the youngest, the younger they get them, the more it affects the core reality of the self of that person in the future. So that it's almost like that's just how they are, that's their personality, because it's such a core trauma. And that's why even the separation from truth is a trauma in itself. There's levels of trauma, and there's birth trauma that we have to survive, and then the actual genital attack. So I think that this puts the people into a dissociative state where, oh, they can give me pain, I better obey. And in a sense, it leads to more statism and compliance with authority in the future. It's and the mothers, they give their babies up to the Moloch of, here you go, doctor, mutilate him, whatever, I trust you. It's if they can convince a person to give up their own children to the cult, then they have them totally. And if you looked at what was happening with the jabs, there were kids screaming and fighting, and their masked mothers holding them down as they're jabbing them. It's sick. I hope those poor kids survive.
Sean,
oh, go ahead, Johnny.
Please, Will.
Thanks, Will. Real quick. Well, I did find that it's actually Holoverse. Hulliverse that Van Halen was raised Dutch Roman Catholic. He was just a baby when his particular institution was castrating young boys to cure them of homosexuality.
Jeez.
But Van Halen appears to have been spared this. This is also from Reason magazine. Mom arrested and jailed for making 8-year-old son walk half a mile. This was in Texas.
Wow.
So any excuse to take the child.
Right.
Any excuse to take the child. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, that story's crazy, and I know people personally that have had really insane stories. I don't want to get into details, but CPS is a predator class system.
CPS, right? CP, right?
Child predator.
Yeah, exactly.
Seekers. I mean, or whatever. But they aim for fucking families to just totally destroy. Anyways, what I was going to say, what you were saying a minute ago, Sean, the disassociation, it's a perfect primer for collectivist cult ideologies to step in, because the individual doesn't have the tool set to integrate their pain and their trauma deep down in the shadow and the unconscious. So they externalize it and they they look for healing or answers elsewhere. And what do you know, right there in popular culture, it's the collectivist cult mentality is there to pick them right up. So now they can identify with a group of people and run through that. So,
and they're not identifying with their father. Like they're not identifying with their father. They're identifying with the greater cult that has scooped them up, because the fathers are just letting them go to school and letting them listen to whatever, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, getting deep into like Jungian psychology, right? With the anima and the animus. This is what I've talked about a lot. Some people might not like hearing this, but if you look at, someone that is a man and wants to be a female and vice versa, I guarantee you 99% you can look at their family and you can see the lack of from mother or father. And this is called anima possession or animus possession. This is when the unconscious, the trauma is so unbearable that it comes out and expresses itself externally. And what's more drastic than hating your father or having male trauma in your life when you were young and you want to change your identity physically. I mean, that's where, a lot of it stems from is childhood trauma, and it's directly related to the parents.
That's a very good
I like to
point.
back that up whenever I can.
Go for
please,
it.
Yeah, real quick. So just this morning, I interviewed the co-founder of Survivors of Childhood Sex Abuse, Richard Windman, who was trafficked by a consortium of governments, cops, Boy Scouts, and Roman Catholic priests, specifically Jesuits. He was repeatedly violated, used. It's very, very disturbing to find out. Bottom line is, just like everybody's been saying, Will, Sean, James, the first line of defense is loving parents. The first line of defense, loving, awake parents. It turned out that Richard's mother confronted the Boy Scout masters who were trafficking him to rich and shameless all around the world and flying them in to rape this poor kid. And she confronted them, and when they offered to pay bills for her, she allowed it. Richard talks about
Satanism right there.
It's satanic. It's absolutely satanic. Any parent that does that needs to be brought up for the same extremely real justice, harsh charges of any child rapist. We talked about the exploitation of kids in Haiti. And how natural disasters in Haiti were exploited specifically by the Roman Catholic Church. There was a Jesuit mission there that was mass raping the children there. And the parents were saying the same thing. The kids were starving. And the parents would tell the kids, well, if you want to eat, you have to let this happen to you. So there was
Wow.
a single non-ordained missionary from Colorado that took the prison sentence. Nobody else was arrested, no criminal charges, and the Jesuits were able to pay it off with a $60 million settlement. That's the game they play. Is there's never any criminal procedures because the cops and judges and politicians are all either pedophiles themselves or bought off.
Right.
And
just like Dutroux. You are familiar with the Dutroux affair?
middleman. And sure,
He's
Belgium.
just the one guy. Oh, he had
Middleman, and told everybody he's a middleman. Told everybody
Right.
there's a huge network. Epstein, there's a
Right.
huge network above
Exactly.
and below. It's not just
Right.
Epstein. There's a huge network above and
Yes.
below. No. It's
Right.
just him. Now go back to sleep.
He's a
Right.
bad.
Committed suicide twice.
That's
He's a
right.
bit of, he's a bit of a patsy, that Epstein guy. I mean, not saying he wasn't doing the things he was doing. I'm just saying that he's the one that they throw to the wolves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's the
Just
one
like
that they
Dutroux
go,
was
oh, well, you got the guy, and then everyone's
Right,
just like, yeah, we got the guy. We put a stop to this, and like then they continue behind the scenes doing what
You
they're
send
doing.
Jack Ruby over there
Exactly.
to shoot him in the gut.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Exactly. There's hundreds and thousands of Epsteins out there, man. This is what people need to understand is that the dark occultists, the Satanists, their currency is children. That
Exactly.
energy,
Bingo.
that child energy,
In fact, their body,
is what
their child
is their
bodies.
currency, is what they feed off of. It's what they want, and it's what they're after. Not fucking money or anything else, any
That's-
other type of resource. It's children, the energy of children.
Yeah,
Well,
there's
let me add to that real quick,
ahead,
Sean.
Sean,
What
please.
Will's saying. Now, I've watched Richard Windman interview Mitch Garabedian, the now famous lawyer out of Boston, and Garabedian and all those like him, Jeff Anderson. I think he's out in Washington State. They play this game. These lawyers willingly participate in this game, and they shine themselves on and say, well, it's not justice to get a settlement, but it's validation. The money admits to them that it actually did happen. And then they get down this track, and Will is spot on. It has very little to do with money, especially when you're talking about the Roman Catholic Church, who manages trillions of dollars, billions of modern stolen dollars. Mike Resendez, out of the Spotlight team, did an Associated Press article about how the Roman Catholic Church stole COVID relief money. You've got these tyrant scumbags in government who are crushing family businesses needlessly over the scamdemic. And then they say, we're going to throw you some crumbs back in COVID relief money. We've been bleeding you to death. We'll give you some crumbs back. And the massive harlot of the Roman Catholic Church jumps in front and takes billions of dollars and gives it to the pedophile vacation homes.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not about money. It is absolutely about what I call the devil simulation. It is the ultimate deal with the devil. What are you willing to do to get ahead? Are you willing to violate the most innocent, cause pain and harm to the most innocent? Fauci with his experiments on torturing puppies to death. Are you kidding me? The Jesuit Fauci puppy, my tax dollars is what they do. Who finds sexual attraction with a toddler? No, this is the Satanism, and they have destroyed their humanity. I'll shut up, Sean. Go ahead.
No, I agree that
You're dead on, Johnny.
Please,
I got something in it. Oh, if you wanted to go, Sean, that's cool. I got something in a minute that kind of backs up some of the things. So go ahead.
Right on. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I guess I kind of got off track there from what Johnny was saying, but yes, they have the attack on the youth, and okay, what I wanted to get to is that yes, they are currency. Like, human beings are drug factories. Each human being has an endogenous drug system, and that can be hijacked by another person. And that's what a lot of this dark occult ritual is. That's why you look at Simeon of Trent. They like the photographs of this little kid. They're just bleeding him. But that, I mean, there's the loosh being stolen by the other realms, but there's also the blood itself is accentuated with the endogenous drugs that are pumping through that little terrified individual. And they're feeding off this like vampires. People are familiar with adrenochrome. There's many drugs. It's not just adrenaline. And this has become, this is a currency. Not only the fact that they can use them as sex like slaves, or they harvest their organs, they turn them into slaves for the future through trauma. So they're infinitely valuable to have this commodity of a child that can be raped and is a dissociative state that you can trade amongst others. And blackmail is the only glue that holds together a hierarchical structure of Satanism. They have to have blackmail. And if you read the two books by Whitney Webb, the One Nation Under Blackmail, Volume 1 and 2, describes the whole phenomenon of Epstein. And it's not just sex, it's finance. And finance connects to everything. Finance connects to truth because money is actually being exchanged and it's put there in reality for all to see. So if people need to pay attention to what's really going on. Sorry. There, James, have you found that?
I did not find what you're speaking about, but
what you were speaking about before.
Oh yeah. I have it on standby here. It's so what we're establishing this baseline here when we're talking about Epstein and we're talking about the energy harvest and all of what they're trying to do, and it plays an important role because the jig is up. The stories are coming out. And it's like a mad dash to the finish to make it so that the crimes that they've committed are somehow acceptable among the majority of people so that they don't go to the gallows. Like this is a major play when it comes down to it. Like, this is a big part of the means to justify the end, where the end that they want. And an excellent
that's a very good point.
To kind of like give an example of this, I got another article here, and it is about this Washington Post article about Downstate, which is a play about pedophiles. And Washington Post says it's also brilliant. The tagline is that Bruce Norris's off-Broadway work is tough stuff, questioning how society treats those convicted of heinous acts. And it's like, okay, why are we even questioning this? These people have done the most atrocious thing that you can do to another human being, because honestly, there are two classes of people within society that are always ranked the most defenseless among us, and it's elderly folks and children, and not in that order. Actually, it's opposite that order. Children are the most defenseless people in our society. Elderly people are at least at an age where they've been able to realize their potential and learn the difference between right and wrong and to have a brain of their own. Children are not there. It's just the facts. So when we're looking at puff pieces from the Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, Amazon, all that stuff, and it's just like this predator class, and it's like I can't stress it enough, folks, that this is like real. It's really going on, and that the goal is to make it so that they can just do it right out in the open and not have anybody think that that there's something wrong with it. So it's this slow burn process of normalizing this behavior. That way, when it all comes out, that they can do it. There is a professor from the Old Dominion University. That professor's name is let me see here. Hold on. Sorry, guys. The professor. Shit.
It's okay, brother.
Anyways, Professor Alan Walker, and it's. Let me see here. Let's pull this up, and let's put a face to the name.
Thanks for that, James.
Yeah, no problem. So, professor who defended, so they resigned. This person resigned, and since pedophiles don't choose who they are attracted to, that attraction
So
should.
fucking bullshit, dude.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, my mic's hot.
Speak up, bro. That's great.
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To even say that.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And and that the
Love is
attraction-
love.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a circular definition. That's not logically fallacious at all. Excuse me.
Fallacious. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's fallacy, right?
Yeah, you're right. But it sounds like another word.
Fellatio.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking immature prick. But like the universe, so this is Alan Walker, and like he, they, them, whatever. He resigned, but not without really trying to make this this story come out. And it makes it a topic of conversation, and like Will said, fucking bullshit. Like they're not choosing.
There
Go
was
ahead.
TED Talks.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
It says right there, pedophiles don't choose who they love. That's the abdication of free will. Fucking A, they choose, and they know exactly what they're doing, right? They are choosing that shit. The mockery is it's so abundant. It's out there everywhere. You look at the Balenciaga issue, right, where they said, "Oh, it was just an accident." Like, come on, dude. Like that's the biggest pile of fucking horseshit, man. It's not an accident. They know what they're doing. They're putting that out there to the public. And like what you were saying, James, it's all about normalizing it and desensitizing it. And that's what they ultimately want. They want it so they can freely do it out in the public with no kind of pushback. In fact, they want others, the majority of people, to think like them, because this is what the satanic class does, right? They want to give them their ideology to the majority of people, because they just want to create one big ass planet that's just one big ritual.
Yeah,
one satanic society.
All slavery. Yeah.
They wouldn't mind if that it eventually came to be that the people that don't accept it are looked at as the weirdos.
Right.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like
that's kind of what happened with the maskers.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
What, you don't like to wear a mask? What you don't like to be invaded by with a poison? Like, who knows what it is? Like, what do you mean you want to kill grandma? Like it's that's all part of it. And that, the massification and the solipsism of like, that's, more stealing away truth. So they have nowhere to stand, and they can't, they can't be a fighting force like what Will and Johnny were saying. We need to have a race that will be able to stand up against the slavery of the future. And if everybody just agrees to, the Satan world, yes, snow is black. Yes, men are women. Oh, sure. And if we agree to that and they're allowed to walk free, we're going to be total slaves in that realm. Like, they are creating that to be the master. And they cannot create their own reality. They have to make a mirror of the truth, and they have to make it the opposite. I mean,
the inversion of reality, right? The three principles: truth does not exist, there is no higher power, and number 3 is human beings are the apex of creation. Right? It's like, so you could see it even in a really big catchphrase is, well, love is love. No, that's not right, because you have to have the love for truth first. Truth comes first. Then you can understand what love is.
Right. Like morality is objective, and we all suffer. And in order to have any understanding of others at all, to recognize that they are there experiencing along with you, you have to see them as another person. And what they do with this materialist society, they separate us off, and they make us see them as them, and we're us, and that's them, and then it creates the division, and that way humanity can be ruled by the enslavers. Like, if we're busy fighting them, then we're already lost. we all got to be together as one, and recognize that there's only like 1% of 1% is the ruling class of Satanism. All we got to do is just say, no, snow is actually white. What? No, I am actually a man. You can take your Satanism and shove it. I'm going to go live life with truth, and we can all live together.
I've got some threads, Sean, to piece it all together. And first of all, listen, these accidents happen. Okay, just ask Janet Jackson with her 2004 wardrobe malfunction at the Super Bowl. Accidents happen.
That was on purpose, obviously.
Okay, come on. No, people are not being purposefully sexualized. Come on.
Right.
But love what James said about justice. And for me personally, as a born again Christian, I have a very strong agenda to unseat Christians from the heresies of forgiveness without repentance. That's an absolute heresy. This idea that you have to be a pacifist to the point of being oblivious to injustice. Those are all unbiblical heresies, and they're inundating culture. They completely control culture. I've talked about it before. I love to use the example of the 1960 movie Spartacus with Kirk Douglas, where couldn't be any more injustice than being forced to slaughter people for the amusement of Romans. And they make their break. They flip the tables in the camp. And Douglas goes into the prison cells there, and he's wandering through, and he's remembering the past and how they dangled the slave girl, Jean Simmons, in front of him, and then they gave her to somebody else and laughed. And then he hears a commotion outside, and he goes back outside, and he sees his fellow gladiators are forcing the Romans to fight each other. And the brave, gallant Kirk Douglas jumps in the middle and says, no, no, no. We don't do to them what. And I'm screaming at the screen, are you effing kidding me? This is exactly what needs to be done. Everything that they did needs to come back on them. That is real justice. And they want to, this is the purpose for the transgender agenda. The purpose for destroying masculinity is to the very people the very men that would mete out the justice are well-adjusted men who are moved and motivated by righteous indignation and will not be stopped and will not be distracted by lust, will not be distracted because they've been watered down as metrosexuals. They will mete out justice as is truly deserved. And the satanic machine despises that. Fears it, not despise it, fears it. They are an absolute stark, raving mad fear and doing anything and every that they can and they can think of to avoid that happening anywhere in the near future. And if we only knew how few they were and how many we were, it'd already be done by now.
Right. Yeah. And that's probably one of the big reasons why the mass injection campaign is happening. Because they want to neuter us all, kill us all before we wake up. So they're doing the mass reaping right now because they can't keep the lid on anymore. Like James was saying, it's being revealed. Like this is the great revelations, the revealing, and people are taking the mark. It's really prophetic what's happening. And it's sad that people that grow up their whole lives learning about in the book, they're teaching them like, don't take the mark, and then they line up for the shot. It's like, whoa, what's happened to these people? And they're all slaves, and they're all levels of mind control. They go to school and they pledge allegiance to the flag, and they're told to vote, and they're the whole thing of like authority is we tell you truth and what is right and wrong, and you don't get to choose. Because morality is subjective ultimately, like what Will was talking about in the beginning, and that is the main satanic like program is that with the nihilism and the self-hatred. And if they can get us to agree to killing ourselves off before we wake up, then they win, you know. So we got to wake up everybody we can and make sure that they don't die, because we need to have all the fighters in the fight. And like I said earlier, the myocarditis hits the males in the heart. Why does it hit the young males in the heart? Because those males are going to be just the ripe age to fight once the truth is out. And this 2030, about that 2030 time, is when I think that they're planning to have it all sewn up tight. And the young kids of today, they're getting masks. They're going to be about that age in, 2030, another, give it another 10 years or something like that. And it'll be fully, they're going to be pulling the wool over everything. And if you didn't die yet, then you better like have a plan, because they got the digital money system. That's, slavery right there. Like, money in general was already a slavery, but now they're going to take away cash. So now, like, they're going to see everything you do and when you do it. And like, I mean, if you understand technocracy or cybernetics, then you'll understand like how they can control the future of humanity. And they already treat us like cattle.
Right. They're doing that over in China right now, like with the CBDCs and everything like that, and social credit scores and whatever. They're rolling out the plan over there to see how it works in real time.
Yeah.
And then hopefully, when it comes down to it, the globalists will be able to roll out that plan everywhere else, with the work that they've already done in one place behind them, so they can anticipate how the reaction will be in other places. They're not going to say it's the same exact reaction. That's not what I'm saying, but they can anticipate things. It's all about anticipation and preparation. Right. These people have bottomless pockets when it comes to money. They're the people that make the money. They can do whatever they want.
Right.
So when it comes down to it, when they anticipate these reactions to these things, their preparation for the wide range of reactions, they've kind of accounted for just about anything that exists on that spectrum.
Right.
And they'll be ready. Like that's their whole job. They've been doing this for a long, long time, and they're basically ready for anything.
And now with Will, go ahead and speak.
I was just going to say, it's part of the depopulation agenda, right? To invert the genders, right? To feminize the men and masculinize the women.
Right.
And so there you have, birth rates plummeting.
Culling.
Also exactly, it's culling, absolutely. And the war on testosterone. Well, the inversion of testosterone, right? They want to give mass amounts of testosterone to women, exactly, but they're demonizing it in men. And testosterone is something that a lot of men need to look at, especially in your 30s and 40s, and understand healthy testosterone development in the body, exercise, food, even certain supplements, absolutely, because that testosterone is the fire. This is what motivates and inspires and adds the fuel to our masculinity. And, testosterone is needed in women, just not that much. It's kind of funny that, as soon as boys, as soon as they start to get to puberty, that's when the testosterone development kicks in. Right. So, of course, they're more feminine in pre puberty. Right. But it's like they invert everything and they use it to their advantage in the agenda.
Yeah. And they use the puberty blockers to stunt that in them. And then when the child decides, oh, OK, I want to be whatever gender, doesn't matter what gender they decide, their bone density is destroyed.
Totally. Well,
So
you're fucking with nature, man. You fuck with nature, because nature is creator, is creation. That's the exact definition of the word. Whatever anybody wants to kind of how they relate to that, call it God, creator, the all. This is what it is, right? And when you fuck with that, that's the ultimate blasphemy, and there will be repercussions and effects.
Yep. There's very prominent people out there in society right now calling for instance, James Cameron calls testosterone James Cameron calls testosterone a poison, says,
dude,
get it out of your system.
That's the article I was just looking for, and you found it. That's
Right.
yep.
So like this is nothing. This is the point of like bringing up the articles and pulling it all up, is because we could sit and talk shit about it all day and like be like, yeah, and like then people would be questioning it. It's like, no, like this is actually happening in real time. It's not 20 years ago. It's not. There's very prominent people out there that hold a lot of sway in public opinion of things, and they're calling for this kind of stuff.
Creating reality, right?
You know, there's no such thing as toxic masculinity. No, there's just toxic people.
Right.
Like, there's just people out there that do shitty things to one another and act really shitty ways. And it's like, no, like this doesn't work that way. Like you said, Will, they're going against nature. They're trying to like, what would you like, bastardize it. They're trying to make it seem funny, you know, like, oh, we can do whatever we want. Like
they are the masters of the creation.
You know, it's
they're trying to be the masters of this world.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yep. That's what they want. They want over slavery. They want fucking that's what they want eventually to get to.
Right. And they've had us there for years and years. You know what I'm saying? Like it's people got to wake up quick. So the entrainment that we experienced as people, I mean, I kind of shift gears a little bit, everybody here. The entrainment that we received was more television. You know, we didn't really have the internet when we were little kids. Like James is the youngest, I think, here, and like but still we had television was the main influencer, right? But now things are different. Okay, technocracy has created a new realm of mind. Like I was saying, they created the reality and they gave it to us through the TV. Now the kids have a cell phone. I wanted to share a clip with you guys. It's
do it.
All right.
Starts with techniques like pull to refresh. So you pull to refresh your newsfeed. That operates like a slot machine. It has the same kind of addictive qualities that keep people in Las Vegas hooked.
One of the central issues of Skinner's philosophy of behaviorism is that just like the pigeon, man is a predictable animal. Gambling systems have a schedule that we call variable ratio. That explains why people gamble. The psychoanalysts say people gamble to hurt themselves, destroy themselves. Other people say they do gamble for the excitement and so on. Well, nonsense. You gamble because there is a certain schedule built into the gambling device or system, as in a horse race. These same schedules will make a pathological gambler out of a pigeon as well as out of a person.
It's interesting raising kids 5 years apart. You know, John could leave his phone sitting somewhere away. We've noticed that Jack's generation is of kids, they can't do that. They're so completely tied to their phone, and they don't even know life without a telephone.
Typically when I get bored, I do pick up my phone. I tend to switch apps every 30 seconds to a minute.
They will literally melt their brains before they got off the device.
When we think about traditional drug use, we know that the age of first use, the earlier it happens, the greater likelihood for addiction. And so think about, with children, their brain is developing, and if they are not having balance in how they're using this, and it's developing at a younger age, I just, question how that will continue to impact them for years to come.
Young folks tend to have their reward sensitivity and their social sensitivity develop much earlier than their ability to regulate these areas in their brain. Throughout childhood, the brain experiences rapid maturation. It begins in areas responsible for basic perception and memory, way in the back of the brain, and it ends in the front of the brain. And in the front of the brain, that's the areas that are most important for having us regulate our responses to rewards and our responses to social feedback. And the highest order part of that doesn't really develop into the 20s.
My biggest fear is when they get older that they never put those things down, and that they're so disinterested with connecting with other people, like in person, that it negatively affects them.
Being a leader 14 years ago was easier. The way kids are has definitely changed. They have less or no coping skills. They are also harder to kind of break that outer shell and talk about hard things. They don't want to, or they don't know how. It's wild. They really just don't know how to get there.
One of the greatest consequences of screen time addiction is just the lack of social development, social skills development, being able to connect with other people.
And we're seeing a lot more of that as we are becoming more aware of what social media does to our ability to have empathy and to interact with others and to see their social cues, understand their social cues, and react accordingly. We're seeing the difference that it's making, but the kids aren't.
The disconnect of even just he with his friends. I mean, it is how they connect, but how connected are they if they're all getting depressed? And
yeah, well, if they don't have anything to compare it with,
yeah.
like you said, we have a comparison because we grew up differently, because we didn't even have the option.
We're incredibly social creatures. That's actually what separates us, not our intelligence, but our ability to work together in communities, to thrive as humans. A huge chunk of your brain is devoted towards just understanding people's moment-to-moment facial expressions, because social signals that come very rapidly are incredibly important to us, even if in the moment we're not totally realizing how important those social signals are.
Would any of you guys say that you struggle or have struggled with anxiety or depression?
Anxiety.
In high school?
Both.
Yeah.
Depression.
Yeah, me too.
Don't.
Yes, definitely. I have an entire friend group who has latched on to each other due to their connection with depression.
Because they both are prone to anxiety and depression, I can't pinpoint whether or not it has anything to do with their device.
He's addicted to some games. I'm addicted to some games. Sometimes when we don't get it, we cry, we throw a fit.
I notice that my anxiety ramps up when I'm on my phone more, but not from like any specific thing, just kind of the more time I spend in my head, the worse off I get.
A statement that I've been making at my talks with high schoolers is, don't you all just sort of feel like every moment of every single day we're all living in a state of low-grade anxiety? And they all just kind of look at me like, yeah.
So we are seeing many more kids coming to school with diagnoses of anxiety and depression. And we also know that the teen suicide rate from 2010 to 2017 increased 56%.
My day-to-day life in the ER over the last 20 years, I think there's been two very palpable changes. One is childhood obesity, and the other is mental health issues in terms of the volume and the frequency.
I have personally seen a difference in the number of children who are coming to the ER with mental health issues, with non-suicidal self-harming, and suicide attempts and suicidal ideation.
So that's what they're doing. They have, it's a race to the bottom of the brainstem. And there's a device that they choose to, I'll use a different app every 30 seconds. Can you even imagine with your brain using a new app every 30 seconds? Like, it's unfathomable to me how their minds are created to do that. And of course, it's programming them to be self-hating, nihilistic. I mean, it makes them look at themselves with the camera and show off to others what I look like. And this whole, it's a mind virus. And I've got another clip that goes with that, but I wanted to get what everybody said first. Does anybody want to speak up?
Sure. I'll jump in real quick because I want to say something about human nature and how it is programmable. Human nature is not predictable, but what is predictable is the programming, right? Especially nowadays with AI. People are on social media posting every day what they're doing. So it's very easy to understand habits and behavior. And yes, that can be predictable. But what we're talking about is addiction for all these young kids. Every parent out there, I'm sure, has experienced their kid having withdrawals from a device. Yeah. I mean, whether it's an iPad, a phone, the TV, it doesn't take long.
Those
And
blockies are supposed to be over there. Like, it doesn't
Yep.
matter what it is. Like, okay.
For sure. And you know what? The average TV screen nowadays, it's 60 hertz, which is, I mean,
Right.
perfect for programming the brain. I remain neutral on technology, but it's what the technology is being used for. And I'm not advocating, oh, well, someone, a kid is on the phone or on the iPad every day watching educational stuff. I'm not for that. There's obviously a balance. But yes, there are these, social media platforms like TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Reels and all this shit. The
We're going to talk about
short-term
TikTok.
clips. Okay, cool. Well,
We're
I'll wait
gonna.
before I
No,
get into that. But
no, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted. We have a clip for that, and that's like more of the weapon. But,
yes,
please.
I'll just end on what I was going to say, and that's the anxiety is a common theme that these kids are experiencing because it's ultimately keeping them in fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
And that's what the anxiety is. So, I mean, anyone, I personally have been through a hellish addiction. This is what this was the catalyst of my awakening, and my awareness was coming out of my my addiction, right? But when you're an addict and you're in that, needing to get the fix stage,
right,
you experience anxiety.
Yeah.
So it's the
That's true.
constant need to get that fixed type of feeling,
Right.
the fluctuation of the dopamine. It's crazy. So we got
Very
it's a
good
whole
point.
generation of addicts.
That's right. It's a very good point, and it wires the brain in that fashion. It wires it to get used to having that dopamine. So
Mhm.
if they put the phone down, they're having physical withdrawals as well as, like, the mental ideas or the social what have yous.
Right.
James?
Because it's about the chase. Like Will was saying, like it's about the pursuit. And
Mhm.
in that pursuit, that's when the dopamine is not getting released upon the reward. Dopamine's getting released upon the pursuit of the reward.
Right.
And when they're showing that graphic of the brain and all the different parts of the brain that the anxiety and everything affects, like now we're getting into the realm of like now these kids have these mental, what I'm getting at is now they're going to the doctors and be like, something's not right. And then the doctors are like, well, here, have these prescription medications.
Exactly.
And then next thing you know, everybody's on SSRIs or uppers, downers, screamers, laughers, all of that crazy stuff. And
that leads to mind control.
Yeah, essentially.
Because
they're
enslaved. Their will is enslaved.
Not even in the way that many people would think about mind control, but in the essence of like, no, you're taking a substance to literally control your mind.
Exactly.
Like it's not like Manchurian Candidate, like hypnotic kind of thing. Mind control. It's like, no, like you are chemically altering the state of your brain.
That's right. I need that bag for the morning. I need that fix right now. Oh, where's my phone?
Right.
Oh, I must scroll.
And I like that video because of the association to it with like the gambling, because it's the same effect on the brain, but a different from a different starting point. And Will, what you were saying about technology, like, yeah, it is. It's a utility. It can be used for good or it can be used for evil. It is neutral. These computers are neutral. They're not good. They're not evil. It's a utility. What we use them for dictates the outcome of dictates the outcome.
That's right.
And like, so yeah, like, can they be used for educational purposes? Yeah, we can use a television to display something. We can use computers to learn how to do Photoshop and learn about art and in the digital space and whatnot. But like, nothing trumps nature. I'll agree with you on that for sure. But like, we're talking about a utility here, and it's the use of that. And if you think for 1 second that it's not intentional, that these apps and everything is not there to do these things intentionally, you're wrong, because they were created for a purpose, and that purpose is to do this. Now you put it in front of children. Like, think about back when Facebook was first created. You had to have a college ID to be able to access it. Before that, it was MySpace. There was a couple of other social media places at the time, but MySpace largely dominated because you did not need a college ID to access it. Anyone could. In fact, it was kind of cool. You could learn about coding and everything like that through MySpace. I remember MySpace. And then Facebook came out, and
Anyway.
but it was neat. It was
Right.
neat, but anyways, like
it hooks you in. That's the fly.
But it's like
that-
this again. It's like a slow rollout to get people entrapped into these programs to make it so they can do whatever they want with it. They put pornographic material in front of children on these apps. They do all these crazy things. They do body shaming rituals on these apps. Like the kids can't get away from. And back in the day, before this stuff was created, you'd go to school, you might get teased or bullied or pushed around maybe a little bit, but you could go home and escape all of that. Now it's tethered to you. It's tethered right to you. You bring it everywhere you go with you. These kids are growing up in a world where there's no sense of privacy anymore.
And they accept it.
And maybe they don't accept it.
Well, they have the phone.
I would argue that they don't even know that they're giving it up. And
that might be true too. Yeah, but they do accept it also. Like even if they don't know, there's still the phone is on and it's happening. It's recording. It's giving all the information to the Satanists.
Sure, they're participating in it. Yeah, for sure. They accept it that way, where they're actively participating in it, and that's a tragedy
to get the dopamine. So it's like they need the state, like they need dope. It's like it's crazy.
Can I clarify dopamine versus serotonin?
Right.
So dopamine, right? It's triggered and acts it's for short-term pleasure, right? And it touches 5 brain receptors, and it's highly addictive, right? You always wanting more. Serotonin, it's a long-term satisfaction. Serotonin touches 14 brain receptors. It's non-addictive, and you feel grateful. It's like it's like learning something. It's like, you can give a man a fish, or you can learn how to fish, right? I mean, so that's dopamine versus serotonin, and constant dopamine hits that definitely will send you into a depression-like state,
right?
Because you're getting depleted.
And the SSRIs affect the other system, which gives a long-term effect of self-hatred, nihilism, and whatnot. Johnny, do you what?
Yeah, I want to compliment James for his take on it. These are power tools that we're being given without instruction. It's no different than the technology of electricity or Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. Right. We're being handed these tools, and we're completely oblivious that they have negatives that attach to them, that there are people that are going to have terrible reactions from being exposed just to electricity, no less to endless waves of radiation, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. And for some reason, neither science nor medicine is any visibility on the negative effects of these tools or the radiation that emanates from them. Real quick on MySpace, great point. It's interesting that DARPA conducted a social networking experiment called LifeLog.
Yeah, buddy.
And ended LifeLog on February 4th in 2004. And just by coincidence, that same day, February 4th, 2004, a dorky little Jew with a bowl haircut, he looked like Bill Howard from the Three Stooges, had the brilliant idea to start Facebook. It was all his. Right. It had nothing to do with anything else. It was just purely a coincidence.
Right.
Also, I wanted to go backtrack real quick on Sean, your point in the mark of the beast. I listen. The vax it's not the mark of the beast, but as far as metaphors go, as far as types go, wow, it doesn't get much better than that. Revelation 13. It's interesting that Fortune magazine promoted an article recently. Comedian Jimmy Dore talked about it, how the unvaxxed are causing accidents. Why? Well, because it's assumed that because they challenge authority, then they're screaming through stop signs all the time. And by the way, in my neighborhood, I'm surrounded by illegal aliens, and they're the ones that are breaking all the laws. Also, real quick, back to our former topic, isn't it interesting that there are so many women? Back out the big picture. Why transgender agenda? Here's a revolutionary idea. Men and women are different. Men and women do things differently. Men are stronger in some aspects than women. Women are stronger than men in other aspects. In general, men are more open to being assertive or aggressive when necessary. Women are more compassionate and empathetic when necessary in general. So isn't it interesting that we are being inundated with women who are elected to office, and by coincidence, many of these women are manipulated into being the most vicious tyrants out there, from Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan to, of course, Nancy Pelosi, the perennial. She's an evergreen tree herself. The Italian Roman Catholic transplant from Maryland, where daddy was the governor of Baltimore, connected to the Catholic Church and the mafia, to Jacinta Ardern in New Zealand, a female who should be running for her life. The crimes that she has committed there. And instead she keeps going harder and harder. There's a reason why these women are selected and thrust forward. It's because it's easy to manipulate them. It's not as easy to manipulate their male counterparts. And just general statements. I'm not trying to be misogynist. I'm just saying these are the roots to this transgender agenda.
Good point.
Good point, Johnny. That is so important. You know what happens when you get, especially females, right? Females are very empathetic. When you get them in a collectivist mindset, they're apathetic. When you have individuality, unconscious self, empathy comes with that, because you are aware of yourself and you are aware of another individual. As soon as you get into a collectivist mindset, empathy goes right out the window. And that's why, we get
Brilliant
these
point, Will.
vicious
Brilliant point.
women, man.
For some
Very
reason,
good point.
a woman named Hillary Clinton comes to mind.
Exactly.
We came, we saw, he died. Okay.
Yeah.
The ultimate sociopath. The ultimate sociopath. And either it's collectivism that does that, or it's self-interest, where you destroy your divine spark. And this is male or female. You destroy your empathy, you destroy your compassion in order to commit these heinous acts and crimes to get yourself into this system that is built on these crimes. And what are you willing to do to get ahead? What are you willing to harm an innocent, torture an innocent? That's male or female. Right?
Satanism. That's what it is. Egotism, self-preservation, moral relativism. These are the tenets of Satanism. So absolutely. Good point, man.
And that's how they populate their structure, their hierarchy of dominance. And that's how they can control with this belief that we have in authority at all. Like, hello, we have free will, and we can do what we choose with our bodies and our voice. And, once people wake up, they have no chance. So in order to have this structure, this hierarchical structure of dominance and obedience to authority, they have to have blackmail. And there's a good book, Political Ponerology, which describes this very well, about why and how the blackmail. And that's why what Whitney Webb describes in her book, the One Nation Under Blackmail, this is the structure of power. And this is why children are a currency for them, because they can blackmail you with it, because it is still a sin. And if they can change it to where it's not a sin anymore, like they did with homosexuality, they used to control people with saying, "Oh, we'll tell everybody you're a homo," and they do whatever the person says. "Oh, go control reality for me," It's like that's how they get everybody. And if you look at the FBI, the leader of the FBI was a transvestite. I mean, and he used blackmail to control his enemies. And he learned it from others. And that's what Kinsey was doing. He was collecting the psychosexual perversions of everybody and cataloging it to be used in the future. I mean, this is blackmail creation. Where sit down, tell me, when was the first time you fucked a donkey? Oh, and this leads it into like acceptance of this is not morally wrong. Like, do you fuck donkeys? Like, no. But if you ask, when's the first time you fucked a donkey? Then, oh, well, just once or twice. It's easy. That's how they layer it in, and then they, Kinsey he went around and he, collected all of these sexual perversions from prisoners and psycho people that were like in mental institutions. And he never asked any like straight males what they thought about sexuality. So what was put in that book was deviant, pedophile, sadomasochism, and it was printed in black and white. I mean, it's right there for everybody.
He
to
had help
read.
from the FBI. Sean, he had help. He actually had a mass rapist. What do you call him? Codename Mr. Green. I think it was Rex King. And what did they do? While America's men were thrown over in a meat grinder, a needless meat grinder in Europe, all the able-bodied men were being slaughtered and slaughtering others on the battlefield. Rex King was bouncing from house to house to house, raping their children and taking meticulous notes and sending them to Alfred Kinsey. Now, the FBI asked Alfred Kinsey, hey, can we have access to the notes? And Dr. Kinsey said no. And the FBI said, okay.
His foundation still says no. They still say no.
And that's how it works. Listen, if the FBI, if the IRS tries to kick your door in at 3 a.m., well, they're not going to do that. They're going to knock on there and say, hey, can we have access because we think you're had criminal activity. Is that how it works for the common person?
Yeah,
no,
right.
Clearly not. J. Edgar Hoover, by the way, was a raving, yes, absolutely raving cross-dresser, but he is not strong enough to initiate that himself.
He's part of the culture. It's always been.
Yes, his blackmail was thoroughly controlled. He was blackmailed himself, and I like to point out at how the entire Federal Bureau of Inquisition was founded by devout Roman Catholic Charles Joseph Bonaparte, the great grandnephew of Napoleon Bonaparte, which is how it is. One of the many ways that America's institutions are her own worst enemies. That's what I found out in my time in the military. Is the enemies are the American institutions themselves, the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, that we can only dream, and particularly they're in collusion with enabling the systemic rape of kids, particularly by the Roman Catholic priests, judges, and cops. America's worst enemies. No one that I ever faced. Not when I was in college, I had to prepare for the Soviet evil, and then it was the evil of jihad, and now it's the evil of China. No enemy of America could possibly imagine a malignancy, a sovereign city-state in Rome that said, go rape their kids and get away with it, and use their own institutions to get away with it. Are you kidding me? With collusion, in collusion with governmental authorities.
Right. Yeah, and then Cardinal Law gets his own church in Rome. He gets a promotion.
Nice little retirement. Just covered that today, where Francis, the Jesuit Pope himself, blessed off on the casket. Hey, job well done, pal. Yeah, job well done. Just as things heated up, right? Gagin, this all started over Gagin, who was put in prison and put in the same cell with a victim who had been accosted for homosexual sex. And surprise, surprise, his cellmate stomped him to death. No loose ends. And then after that, the Massachusetts judiciary vacated Gagin's conviction. His victims were enraged. Why did they vacate the conviction? Because he died in prison. What does that have to do with the actual conviction itself? What does that have to do with justice?
Right.
Absolute fraud.
It wasn't his cellmate, because he wasn't allowed to have a cellmate. They had to let him in.
He was murdered.
Yeah,
they brought an assassinate. Basically, they brought an assassinate.
Right. Because he was in the protective custody block, And I was in the same prison system at the time, and we were watching from the television screen as we heard about the dude from the next block over got murdered in his cell. We were like, oh, yay, good, because he deserves it.
No
you know?
loose ends. Proof, Sean,
Right.
that that's no loose ends, that he was marked. Nobody goes to how many priests that rape kids go to prison are defrocked first and then
Right.
sent to prison for whatever reason. And I haven't, all my research, I haven't come across it yet. Why did they mark for Gagan? Maybe it's just because he was a weak link and they wanted to throw him to us wolves. But of the tiny handful, and then they still get, it's the same thing as the reward for Jimmy Savile. Jimmy Savile is a knight of the Catholic Church and a knight of the British Empire to this day.
Wow.
Neither the Vatican, neither the Pope nor the royals refuse to strike him from the rolls because that's who they are. That's who
Right.
represents them.
Yes, exactly that. They are the eaters of children. And you wrote a book about that, Johnny Cirucci,
Sure.
Eaters of Children. And we're going to give links to your work below, and we're going to
Thanks,
say
brother.
at the end of the show, yes, for sure. And you make very good points. I wanted to, unless anybody else had anything else to say, I wanted to bring up how these devices are becoming a weapon, and it's visible how effective it is. Here, I'm going to play a clip.
A young British tourist has fallen to her death at an infamous eastern suburbs photo hotspot.
He was taking selfies moments before he fell.
Fell to their deaths from a cliff in Cabo de Roca, apparently while trying to take selfie pictures.
As social media use continues to grow, the number of people risking their lives to get the perfect shot for Instagram is also increasing.
Just by those tracks right there, she was going through a photo shoot and did not survive.
But Instagram photos aren't the only fatal social media trend, with TikTok seeing viral videos turn deadly.
Watch as the boys kick their friend in the back of his knees. He falls, his head hits the concrete.
A couple of kids had called him over and told him to jump as high as he could, and when he did, they kicked his legs out from underneath him. When he fell, he broke both bones in his arm just below the wrist.
This viral trend is known as the Skull Breaker Challenge.
I was paralyzed, I fell, I had a concussion, and I was numb. I couldn't feel my legs, my foot, my hands, nothing.
The challenge was banned from TikTok when it saw life-threatening injuries, but this hasn't stopped other dangerous stunts from appearing. The Pass-Out Challenge, also known as Flatliner, and the Choking Game, shows teenagers and children filming themselves using temporary asphyxia to get high.
Let's go! Let's go!
And while the challenge is new on TikTok, it's been around for years on other social media platforms, including YouTube and Snapchat.
12-year-old Jean-Luc Jordan, who went to Mountain Ridge Middle School in Colorado Springs, died after playing a choking game he saw on the internet.
11-year-old Curtis had put a dog's choke chain around his neck, and it's believed when he passed out, he fell forward, tightening the chain and cutting off oxygen to his brain.
The issue is, most parents are completely unaware of the dangers posed by seemingly harmless social media apps.
She said, could he have been playing the game? And I said, what game? And she said, the game, the choking game.
Parents are told to look for warning signs that their children may be involved with the challenge, such as bloodshot eyes, headaches, marks on their neck, or unusual demands for privacy.
You don't think about what the end game or what the end could really be. And in a game like this, the end could be the end.
Sorry, I couldn't get it to stop at the end, but what do you guys think of that?
That used to be called Space Monkey.
Right.
That was a trend even back when I was in
The choking game, right?
Yeah, the choking game.
But it was always imperative that there was other people there to catch you when you fall and to be making sure that everything is
you can't do it on your own, you know.
Obviously, but these people are doing it alone with the phone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tragedy what happened to that little kid.
Oh my God.
I hope that it doesn't. Obviously, as a parent, I don't want it to happen to anyone else.
Obviously.
It's a tragedy. It really is. No one should be going out like that. They shouldn't be playing games like that. I have I have an anecdote about a game like that called Space Monkey. It's the same exact thing. You just basically choke out one of your classmates or a friend of yours or whatever, and then for the same effect. It's literally the same thing. Anyways,
Right.
the
It's
year was like 2003, and I was in gym class, and I look over, and there's a couple of my classmates doing it to another one of my classmates, and he like goes limp, hits the ground, and starts having a vicious seizure. And he's alive. I still see him every now and again, and he's doing well. But I mean, it's just I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen it.
Right.
It's really disturbing. You know, I look over. I'm looking at what's going on. I'm like, this is friggin' nuts. Like, what are
Yeah.
you guys doing to him? And it's just like next thing you know, he's on the floor. He woke up like 10 seconds later. You
Right.
know, and it's just like this wicked, just disturbing image seared into my memory.
Wow.
I mean, it's I don't mean to laugh. It's just one of those things where it's just like, wow, like it's been over 20 years since that happened. And I can still remember it like it was yesterday. And
Right.
it's really disturbing. I hope that more awareness of
Think
that.
about
But like the terrible thing is that was back in 2003 when the internet was like blogs and chat rooms. Like now it's like you make a video of it and it's like an instruction manual. Like you can just see it happen. You can go and recreate it minutes later. I mean,
Right.
it's not good what's going on with
It's
TikTok.
the thing is, it's showing these kids a snuff film. They're scrolling through and they're seeing kids hitting the concrete, slam, and that's funny. Laugh at that. Look at how that's funny. Look over there. You can do that to him. He's a dummy. I can kick his legs out and we can film it on Snapchat or whatever, the TikTok. I mean, this is what it's it is a weapon, and it is being unleashed. TikTok was, it was cultivated, and it is being unleashed on the population, and there are less regulations over there, so they're cultivating it there, and this is the future of they're going to gamify. I mean, with the digital dollars and the digital ID or whatever, to become part of this transhumanist future. This is the ultimate carrot that gets people into the system.
I would say it doesn't beat Sean James Will. It doesn't. The technology, the number one weaponization of the technology is surveillance, is tracking.
Right.
It doesn't get any better than that. I guess that's me doing that. I'm sorry.
Sorry, that was my fault. I hit my mic
Okay.
stand.
Is digital IDs that now Rishi Sunak in England, now one of the wealthiest men anywhere in the world, whose father-in-law managed the digital IDs for all the slaves in India. Huge digital currency. The ridiculous FTX false flag that was manipulated so that leftist stooges like Pocahontas Warren can now make calls for categorizing and centralizing digital currency. You cannot be. As a matter of fact, this was used and exploited. I could not believe that they have milked. Speaking of false flags, they have milked the January 6th insurrection, where repeated FBI stooges and provocateurs got a bunch of Q tailgaters.
It was a big cardboard box, and all the cats jumped in.
Right. Well, what is shocking now is that the same FBI that facilitated this ridiculous false flag is now using it to legitimize this is probably a test run of being in bed with big tech and helping themselves to all the tracking information, particularly of cell phones, and actually swatting people, not asking their permission, but kicking their doors in at 3 a.m. with jack boots, armed to the teeth, full body armor, always in olive drab and camouflage. Why? Well, to let you know that it's an invading army that has nothing to do with SWAT, urban camouflage. It's always olive drab and woodland camouflage to let you know it's a standing army and you will submit to the standing army. Using people's phones to track they happen to be in Washington, demonically controlled on January 6th, and a massive dragnet. They help themselves to this information, whether they had direct access to it or big tech gave it to them willingly. This is the era of the Patriot Act, warrantless wiretaps, etc. Of course, the Patriot Act written by devout Roman Catholic law professor, Jesuit law professor Viet D. Din, who just so happened to be Vietnamese and was there, Johnny on the spot, right after 9/11 to turn in that thousands of pages of the Unpatriot Act. So you can't just be weaponization for technology. It is a collar. It's a collar. Doesn't choke you until they're ready to choke you, but it will choke you.
Yeah, you remember where that technology comes from, anyways. That the internet was even just the internet was even a DARPA project to begin with. So I mean, when we think about it, like they're giving it to us to kind of, like Sean's talking about this carrot, like it's like we have this technology, it's at our disposal, and it was given to us by the very people that like they're setting us up. Is basically what I'm trying to get at. Right. They're really setting us up, and to your point, Johnny, about the January 6th stuff and all the outcome of that, they have released the Intercept looked into it, and we went over this last month on the first episode of Black Pill Digest about the backdoor login portal that all of the social media companies had set up for the government officials to go in and flag posts and to basically tell the social media companies what they should and should not be taking down and all this stuff, burying this stuff in the algorithm. So not only with that Intercept article, but even as recent, earlier this year, last couple of months, Jeff, what's his name?
Bezos?
No, Zuckerberg.
Mark. Yeah.
I fucking whatever. I don't care.
He's the Android.
It's hilarious. You conflated Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg. It's hilarious.
They're probably the same guy. Anyways,
they're the same evil.
Anyways, Mark Zuckerberg goes on Joe Rogan and basically spills the beans about the FBI coming to Facebook and saying, "Hey, there's going to be some Russian misinformation coming, and when you see it, you'll know what we're talking about." And he was like, "Yeah, we buried it in the algorithm. We didn't take it down, but we certainly didn't make it so people would readily see it in their news feeds." And it's like, and now we have Elon Musk taking over Twitter and openly admitting like freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom of reach. That was something he said on Twitter. That was a Twitter post from him. And it's like, okay, so when we start really painting the picture, it's like first we get the technology from the same people, and then we get it after the Patriot Act, because Patriot Act came into play in 2003, wasn't it? Or was it right after 9/11? I was still very young at the time. I can't recall off the top of my head, but it was in the early 2000s.
I think it was like immediately. They already had it written up. Like Joe Biden already penned the thing and it was ready to go. Excellent. I think it was immediately right after.
Yeah,
so it might have been
shortly there.
It might have been later.
Shortly thereafter, they take down Project LifeLog, and Facebook goes up, and then you see independent social media companies like MySpace go away, even if maybe it wasn't independent, but you catch my drift. And the gist of it is that like they have set
funnels people into
it bottlenecks people into an area in which they can perform this mass surveillance. Like, what's the point of having the ability to do the mass surveillance if you don't have the means to actually do the mass surveillance? You can say, you can give yourself, they've given themselves permission to do it, but they can't pull it off without video cameras on every street corner, on the highways and the byways, and without one in our pockets, without
Yeah.
one in every home.
And they
it's-
kill with metadata. They
Yeah,
use metadata to kill American citizens. They admit
who
that.
said? Yeah, they admitted it. Man, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
I've seen that too. You're absolutely correct. I can't recall who said it, but
Me
that
neither.
has
I'm
been said.
sorry.
It's no big deal. We don't need to prove everything, but it's true what you said. So it doesn't need proof.
Right.
James, Rogan missed a phenomenal opportunity to address something.
Well, he's
He should have-
controlled
he-
opposition.
He's absolutely controlled opposition. He should have stopped Mr. Zuckerberg and immediately said, well, wait a minute. So you just drank in whatever it is the Federal Bureau of Inquisition said as if it was from God. They never make mistakes. They never have an agenda. They're like doctors. Doctors never make mistakes. Doctors never have an ulterior motive. Doctors never want to do something for them over and above you. They're like YouTube. They're like the World Health Organization. They
Like
never have an
YouTube.
ulterior motive. Did I mention this? I had it in my notes. I think I missed it. I meant to write down, meant to talk about it. I think I did. How Fortune Magazine did an article about how anti-vaxxers are getting into more accidents.
Right.
Oh
Because-
yeah,
Yeah, you
Right.
did.
Yeah,
because
because
they're more independent and
they
free.
question authority more.
Goes
I
back-
did say that. I remember.
Can I say this about
Please.
that article real quick? I don't think that it's because this is it. The people that are vaccinated are so scared they're staying inside. So of course the people getting into car accidents are unvaccinated because we don't see any danger. So yeah, like when you
And that's the logic they get. They look at their piles of like car accidents and they said, oh, this pile. And then they look at that pile and, oh, that means the correlation means this is truth. And this is just the creation of a headline. And that's the creation of the reality. And the reach of that headline is pushed further than whatever truth frequency we can shout at the top of our lungs. So like that, the reach versus like the freedom, we have freedom to yell and scream, but if nobody's listening, then, if all of the controllers and the evil henchmen that are sending the orders, I mean, they could just be yelling themselves silly. And we could just say, all right, weirdos, and let's like go do our thing, like go have life. But we don't need to listen. So that's the thing. Like if they can control the reality with these phones and that's obvious, that's true, it's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's a good point. And that's, merging the artificial and the natural realities, right? So again, going back to relativism, right? What you see on social media is reality. It is what is going on. And, saying things like human beings are predictable, which this is a big statement in science, the scientific community, right? That humans are predictable. Consciousness is predictable, which is completely bullshit, because if it is predictable, that means there is no free will. And that's ultimately what they want.
Right.
Technology, just looking at the word technology, you have tech, T-E-K, that means to weave or to make, and then logic, right? So they're replacing natural logic, like the process of discerning, and they're giving you their logic. So to make, your logic is what these phones are doing and shit like that. And I saw an article, I can't find it or pull it up, who knows if it's bullshit, I'll just say it. TikTok in China is actually a completely different app than it is in the US.
Yes.
It's used for like education and shit, and over here it's used for just frivolous,
that's right,
bullshit.
So TikTok is owned by a company called ByteDance, BYTE DANCE, and that is a Chinese Communist Party company. And you are absolutely correct, Will. Over there, TikTok is only available on these devices for 45 minutes a day.
That's
and
right.
The material that's on the TikTok app over there is all educational material. Meanwhile, over here, it's complete debauchery and abuse. And you can get it 24 hours a day.
Skullbreaker challenge.
Yeah, it's and I can't help but remember about about the opium wars and the amount of anger that the Chinese people, like the Chinese culture, has toward the West, and it begs the question of whether or not is this a way to degrade us, to demoralize us, and to make us, willing slaves. So we destroy ourselves from within, making us vulnerable people over here at large, and just making it possible for us to be the ones that suffer, go the way of maximum pain and suffer,
And
death by 1,000 paper cuts.
And if you get one person sick, then 3 people have to care for that one person. So it clears off the battlefield a lot quicker if they can sicken us, because then all the others that would be out there working and doing what's right, have to go care for the sick one because they care. And so the careless ones will be off there winning the battle, while like everyone who cares is stuck at home trying to fix their family member that's been destroyed by Satanism.
I have to tell you, it's not a Chinese communist invasion is not something we should be worried about. I think we've already been invaded. They're already here. And
Rockefeller,
yeah, and if I could be the Johnny Broken Record of pointing back to all roads leading to Rome, I like to give the example of the real estate mogul who is dear friends with Jesuit Goldman Sachs man Stephen Kevin Bannon, Gao Wengwei, I believe I'm saying his name right, who made this astounding statement back in 2020 that the Chinese Communist Party, the terrible dragon of the Chinese Communist Party, pays $2 billion a year in tribute to the Vatican. Are you kidding me? Is this the Middle Ages?
Right.
$2 billion a year. Now, why would they do that? They do that for the same reason kings and queens did it in the Middle Ages, because if they didn't pay $2 billion a year in tribute to the Vatican would release millions of Chinese Catholics from loyalty to the Chinese Communist Party and make civil war easy overnight. And this is the chain that leads back to Rome.
Yes,
that's right.
Absolutely, for
Very
sure.
good point.
If I could say something on, that was great, Johnny. If I could say something about the parental aspect of, with these apps and all this kind of stuff, watching the clip, that shit, it's tough. It breaks my heart. But, when I was growing up, I was being raised, my parents gave me a lot of good quality attention and raised me with self-respect and self-love. These parents are completely clueless to what is going on. The need to be viral, to be part of the group. It's this collective mindset again. These young kids, they want to be doing what everyone else is doing, that kind of shit.
Right.
It's just a lack of common sense. It's a lack of self-respect and self-love. And I think, parents do have some responsibility, the ability to respond to their children. So, I mean, at least the basic tool set of seeing something like a game of like choking yourself out and your head hits the concrete by swiping your feet out, hey, that's kind of fucking stupid. I'm not going to do that shit.
Yeah.
But instead it's, let film me. I'm going to try to get 1,000 hits in an hour or something like that. And, again, that goes, but it's all tied in together with the dopamine hits and cultivating culture and that kind of stuff, man. Programming, mind control.
Right. And it's every 30 seconds. They're changing the app every 30 seconds, like flip. So they're getting hit and they're not able to like think consciously. What are they looking at? Their subconscious mind is just like taking it all, and Satanism is just shoving it in. Okay, take this, have this. This is a kid getting his head smashed on the ground. Laugh at it. Here, have another one. This one's choking himself up. Like, it's so demonic. And the parents, they like, what can you do? Like, when my kid is growing up, like, I'm not going to give him a phone. He's going to have to ask me, if he wants to call Grammy or something. Like, I'm not going to give them access to my kid. Like, not only is it like the the surveillance, and their tracking, and I mean, they already got his blood. Like, I we went to a birthing center that was a Catholic birthing center, and they took his blood, and I could not say no. And they said, we're giving it to the state. And he's like, already they got his DNA, and it's like they're putting him in the system, preparing for their future. And so we all
I
need
think
to be careful of the future, because they want access to those kids. Please.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, with the surveillance system that's in place, everyone alive is in the system,
Yeah.
right? There's no way around it. You got a phone,
Right.
you're fucking around online. We're all in the system. They can keep tabs.
Right.
And that's, ultimately where they're going. They want to control energy. They want to, control the frequency.
That's right.
So
They want to control humanity,
Yeah.
ultimately.
I was
Yeah,
talking to another
absolutely.
person in our social circle. I mean, we're not Johnny, but the rest of us we're a part of the One Great Work Network. And I was talking just last night to another content creator on there, and he posited the question of hey, like, how do we know when if our group gets infiltrated? And I'm just like, dude, everything we do is online. It's already infiltrated. We do it
Yeah.
ourselves. Like, it doesn't have to be an individual, because it's available for anybody to see it willingly. Like, there's no paywall. You just go click
Right.
on to your heart's
Everybody's
desire.
controlled opposition until no one is.
No one is. Yeah.
It's a valuable issue. It's an incredibly valuable issue, because our only solution is ground up revolution. And so they know this, and they have worked at this for centuries on how to infiltrate. They do this. The Jesuits are experts at this. They install the most bloodthirsty, monstrous elite tyrants, and then they seed the populace with their muckrakers.
Right.
Social justice came from a Jesuit named Tapparelli in South America, an Italian Jesuit named Tapparelli. That's where we get social justice from. So they are experts at creating revolutionary movements and then suiciding those movements, or worse, having the movement successful to install someone worse than they were in the first place.
Right.
They have done this repeatedly. Hungary in 56, Czechoslovakia in 68, Bay of Pigs. Bay of Pigs is a great example. It was not botched. Bay of Pigs was a purposeful sacrifice of Cuban patriots by the CIA, planned from the beginning to slaughter Cuban patriots, to make sure that Jesuit-trained Fidel Castro stayed in for 50 years, was exactly what has happened. So the way that we sniff them out, you see this more and more often now, is when the idiot stands up in the crowd and says, push back the barriers, run over the police, go into the Capitol. And then you see a couple of smart guys turn around and go, fed. You will know a tree by its fruit. You won't be able to sniff them out until they start saying stupid shit.
Right.
And then you find who it is. And I'll tell you, there was a video of the protest. Is it? Oh my goodness! Is it Norway? The protest where they're stealing farms now for the sake of climate change. Is it Norway?
Mm-hmm.
So they were They were provocateuring. They caught plainclothes cops provocateuring during the protest. And I screamed at the video as soon as they found the cops in civilian provocateuring, rushing back towards the vans. I screamed, jump them right now, because they have completely lost any legitimacy of not wearing a uniform, not wearing a badge. They are caught in a criminal act. Now is the time to go after them. And they probably just bring out the actual uniform cops and start busting heads. But that's how you find them.
That's right. That's how we stand up. And they've trained us to sit down and take it while the cop, does what he does, and he's going to take your information. You sit on the sidewalk or whatever.
Or worse, or beat you up, Sean. It's unheard of that you would actually fight back against a cop. You don't fight back against a cop. What if the cop's committing a crime? What if the cop is a criminal?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I myself, I was charged with resisting arrest because I mean, well, and that was a violent, if the only violent offense was because I was running away from cops and they charged me for violence against them as they were grinding my face onto the pavement. And they had 2 cops pushing me down and saying, "All you have is weed?" And I said, "Yeah, stop it." And they said, "Fuck you, you're going to jail."
Can't
Yep.
win. No win
That's
solution. No win
right.
situation. And I've said, have a plan. You've seen the. By the way, my dear friend Adam Kraz thinks that this is a false flag. The was it New Zealand or Australia? The woman is being choked by multiple cops because she doesn't have a mask on. Could have been a false
Oh.
flag. Could have been staged. But if you see something like that, an obvious crime,
Right.
and you have the ability to act, to interfere with the crime, particularly if you have anonymity, you've got to be wearing a mask yourself or whatever the case is, and you outnumber the criminals, that's the time to act. And you
That's
always
right.
have to have an end state plan. How do you extract yourself from going toe to toe with the criminal state? You have to have an extraction plan, but it is absolutely critical to network. What they have, yes, they have guns, but you know what really gets you? It's the radios. It's the radios. So you have to fight their networking with your networking. And so an attack against one is an attack against 100. And that's how you thwart their criminality and their abuse of coercive force.
That's right. We need to stand up and use the power that we have in the time that we have it, because they'll turn tail and run. Like you were saying at that demonstration, they dropped their signs and with their police issue Nikes, they ran back to the cops and everybody just watched. They sit and watch, they get it on their phones, like the whole thing with George Floyd, whether, who knows if that was staged or whatever, but there's people videotaping it for 8 minutes or whatnot, and nobody is pushing him off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just yelling at the cops, "You can't do that." And they just stand there and they film it. I
Yeah,
don't think
that's
they
bullshit.
know what to do. It's like they're trained to stand down and just document it. It's really weird.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
the thing that went through my head when that first all happened, Sean. I remember you and I got on the phone like the very next day, and you asked me like, "What do you think about that?" I go, "Why isn't anyone stopping that dude? Why
Yeah.
isn't anyone
Exactly.
why isn't anyone going over there and being like, you know what? Like we'll both get fuck it, I'll get arrested too. At least the dude's
Yeah.
not getting choked out anymore."
Exactly.
Yep,
You know?
I feel the same way. I did a short video about it's good to be judgmental, but I'm referring into not preferences or likes, being judgmental on indeed, in action, right? That's what we need. We need to judge people on their actions, if it's moral or immoral.
Right.
And I've seen countless videos of a whole bunch of people standing around and videotaping a woman getting assaulted or someone getting beat up or whatever, and no one's jumping in. That shit is just, it's
Right.
mind blowing to me.
It's like the last episode of Seinfeld. I mean, they put it on TV. Everybody watched Seinfeld, and they put him on trial for not helping. And it's because they're satanic.
Mm.
At the core, they're evil. And that's why they just videotape. And they actually didn't help when a stranger was in need. And that is really that's what Satanism is fighting. They're fighting our care for others. And they want to individualize us, and they want to separate us from others. And it separates us from the Creator itself. And the more that they mask us and the more that they atomize us with our little boxes, it makes us more, it puts us more into the slavery of the solipsism, of the collectivism, of the greater good is more important than the self. And they acquiesce to the evil because they're taught that evil is a good thing.
Neuter and declaw. That's what they want to do.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah.
I have that video real quick.
Mhm.
It's
Yep.
actually the Netherlands, not Norway.
Whoa. So for the listeners, they're running to their van and they have batons against the angry people fighting, just
They're
watching them run away. They weren't doing anything.
they're protesting because their farms were being stolen under the
Right.
pretense of too much nitrogen from the cows, too much global warming. It's just stolen. And here we've got people like Kill Gates, who is now the biggest owner of farmland everywhere around the world.
Right.
Gonna have to take a stand at one point or another. And this is
Right.
what cops do. This is what, so if you're on the inside and you wear a badge, and I've been there as a soldier, you're on the inside and you're being put up, presented with unethical orders. You go along to get along. You either go, you get fired, or you commit these unethical orders. You break the law yourself. So what do? That's a breaking point for you.
Get fired.
And that is a breaking point for you, because once you start committing crimes, once you start going down that road, you are putting yourself on the hook. And there's going to be a recompense very, very soon now, and you will not be able to stand in the way of the overwhelming anger. If a small
Let's hope
fraction,
it's guillotines. Yeah.
oh my goodness, if a small fraction of the American and the world populace had any idea, how, if a small fraction of people knew that their lives were destroyed over a scam that was called COVID, that name any other false pretense, if they had any idea the rage that would ensue, and this is what fears, and this is what drives the transgender agenda. This is what drives the cancel culture. They are absolutely terrified of the truth getting out, and they've used their demonic seances, they've used their supercomputers, they've used their algorithms, and they know it's coming close. It's coming soon. They know, and they're trying to preempt it.
James, you shared something last week on your show, Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth. You shared a clip of a family in New Zealand. There's this little boy that needed
baby Will.
Yeah. Could you explain a little bit about that?
Okay, so baby Will is a 6-month-old infant boy in New Zealand, and he has a heart palpitation, and he needed a heart surgery. And of course, with many, even heart surgeries with adults, you're going to need a blood transfusion. And the parents petitioned that they wanted to have unvaccinated blood for their 6-month-old baby. And they had volunteers come forward and say, hey, maybe I'm a matching donor. I will give my unvaccinated blood for your...
There was many volunteers.
Yeah, they had volunteers come forward, and, but the government stepped in and said no. And then the High Court in New Zealand ruled that it was that the parents didn't have the right to request unvaccinated blood for their 6-month-old infant baby. And they took the baby from the custody of the parents and kidnapped the baby. It basically brought the baby into the custody of the government, and it's very fucking disturbing. And because they wanted unvaccinated blood for their 6-month-old baby during a heart surgery, blood transfusion, and it's like it's the same thing with like CPS coming in and doing things. It's all, but this is on a different level, and then after. Between that show and today, I've also found out that there was a story developing in the United States along the same lines, and the hospital got the unvaccinated blood, and the hospital lost the unvaccinated blood and mixed it up, and they gave the baby vaccinated blood, and now the baby's dead.
Oh my God. Wow.
At this point, it's all about networking, because for parents that have their children stolen, first of all, that you even allowed your child to be stolen, number one. But number two, what are you going to do?
That's why I brought it up. Yeah.
You're by yourself. For me, it's death by cop. It's death by cop. There's no alternative. You're going to steal my baby. You outnumber me. You've got more guns than me, and I'm not going to let it happen. So, but you're not taking me. So it's
right. At least
100%, bro. 100%, man. I feel the same way. There's not a fucking doubt in my mind I would let someone can take my kid, man. I'm unloading everything I got, dude. Nunchucks, everything.
Yeah.
But this is why we network. This is why we network, because by yourself you get slaughtered. But with you, your family, your neighborhood, and many other people with you, then you have a fighting chance. It's networking that is absolutely critical. It's much more critical than any firearm you could ever have, is the ability to reach out and communicate with other people like-minded to have your back. It's critical.
Strength in numbers, man.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'd like to say that the impulse to act in the moment is important. You need to know that it's happening and act at the moment, because James shared a video. I don't know if you have the video, James.
Of what?
Of them taking the baby from,
Yeah, I have it.
Could you please share that? And
yeah,
it just happens, and the order followers just take the baby, and it's really sad to watch the dad watch other men take away his baby, and he just yells at them. It's really sad. Yeah, share that when you get a chance, please.
In this day and age, you got a war game mentally, right? But you have to be grounded and emotionally stable, right? And psychological stability is so important. But I'm not going to lie. I've war gamed in my mind. I've played out scenarios and what would my action be, right? You want to use logic and reason and discernment. But, we're in this time where, there's a lot of issues. So we need to be on our A game on all aspects, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually.
And I mean, you can't undo a thing. When they take the baby and they do what they're going to do with it, they bring it back damaged, and you can't undo that thing. You can't unring the bell. You can't put the stuff back in the tube. It's just, and people need to act in that moment and know what's most important, and do all the power that they have to protect what's most important, understand the principles, and know like what's happening in the moment, because we're trained to be dissociative and just go, and just look, like just turn your neck and, as you're passing the wreckage, just like, whoa,
Right. It's like those scenes in war movies where like, and I'm not, but it's like Saving Private Ryan when Tom Hanks's character is like going, he can't hear anything and he's looking around and he's like, oh,
trauma. Yeah.
And then somebody's sitting there going, hey, what the fuck do we do? Hey. And then he's like,
fight, flight, or freeze.
And he snaps out. He's like, oh, okay, this is what we do. And it's like,
that's the moment of trauma. Right.
So yeah, here's the video.
Yeah. Please. Thank you, James. Whoops. What happened? I'm sorry.
Don't do it. Hey. You are criminals. You are conducting a criminal act here.
So we're preoperative. It needs to happen before the surgery.
Hey, we've been talking to you like rational people and now you've removed you are criminals.
They stop her from going after her baby.
You guys are acting like criminals. You are acting like criminals. All of you are criminals. You are criminals. You are a criminal. You are a criminal. You are a criminal. And so are you. Can you guys just give some space? You are a criminal. You will not be part of the surgery tomorrow. We do not authorize any of that. No, we're not listening to what you've got to say.
It's echoing. So, anyways, I'm not going to play it again. That's on my end because of the way I recorded it. But it just develops from there. And thank you for telling us about the Echo, Space Marine. I really appreciate that. But I mean, it just develops from there. And so basically, you got a mother and the father in the hospital room, and the cops are like just being cops. You know,
Will had it though, James. Will had it. Sean. Will had it. Home run. What you need to do is have a plan. I'm saying that all the time.
Yeah.
Have a plan. Don't allow yourself to get backed into a corner having not considered that. I've been telling people for the past 3 years, going on 4 years, when you're being told you cannot go to work anymore unless you're vaccinated, unless you're masked up, you lay out a calm, rationed plan of all the things. You don't just go off half-cocked, emotional, well, fire me. No, I quit. I want to get out. No, you think things out. Part of your contingency plan is dust off your resume. Know where you need. Do you need to move? Is your state so out of control you need to leave your state? Have your contingency live. This is contingency 1, contingency 2, 3, 4. So you're not in a situation when you're in that position. Those parents knew ahead of time that they were banging heads with the government. They needed to have a series of plans. Hey, is it possible that they could come in here and take our little boy? That's possible for them to do. You already have the plan in place. You don't let it get to the point where you're either standing there like a fool as your child is kidnapped, or you're trying to use coercive force when you're surrounded by 10 cops that are gonna kill you anyway. You've already lost that battle. The battle is in the planning. And like I said, Will home run 18.
Good point.
Love it when a plan comes together.
Well said, Johnny. Absolutely, man. This is what awareness is all about. Consciousness. It's pattern recognition. You need to be able to see the storm on the horizon coming in and make your plans on all aspects, negative and positive situations, right? This is just something that one must consider and do some deep introspection on. But terrible seeing that fucking video. All of those order followers, including the nurses and the doctors, are just immoral, soulless pieces of fucking shit.
Every cop, in that room, they need to be thinking, this could be my kid. They need to be thinking, this could be my kid.
Yeah.
You are an oath-breaking piece of shit if you are taking part of that, because it could be your kid, and it should be your kid.
It will be your kid next. Right.
Dude, like last week we went over it, and toward the end of the video, one of the cops is standing there in the room and he's admitting, I'm a parent too. And they're like, well, what the fuck are you doing then? Like,
well, that guy's going to be first. His kids are going to be first then. It's like,
just doing my job. Yeah.
And it's not even just the cops that are the order followers there too. It's the medical staff in the hospital as well. It's a chain of order followers.
Right.
It's a hierarchy. It's just this big old group where a bunch of different compartments in it, and like all of the compartments are just made up of order followers until it reaches you, and you're the victim that they're taking out their aggression on. And I even last week was just like, I understand, like, you feel outnumbered, you know. I felt bad for the dad, and then Aaron is like, but dude, like, you got to like just whip out the claws and just go full force in there. It's like, yes, that's what you do. That's what you do.
Right.
Yeah. And even though that was in Australia or New Zealand?
New Zealand.
Yeah, I know it's real bad out there, but this shit happens in the States too. Like I said, I have personal friends just recently. Their 5 kids were fucking kidnapped by CPS, all vaccinated and put into public school.
No.
And they're fighting to try to get them back now, all because a fucking neighbor called on them because they homeschool, they unschool their kids, and that's what triggered it all.
Wow.
So, you know,
that's like 1984. That's like that's the panopticon. Everybody's
all their kids got really, they're sick for several, I think several weeks, if I'm not mistaken, because they got fucking,
attacked.
Needlecraft.
Right.
It's crazy.
Like you said, Sean, it's too late at that point. It's too late at that point. Your children are damaged, are harmed by the satanic machine. You let it happen. And does it not make sense in that hellhole of New Zealand and that harpy from hell, Ardern, they have been whittling around. The people of Australia and New Zealand are just in a constant state of being experimented upon as prisoners. It is a prison colony, and it all started, particularly in Australia, in 1994 with that heinous Tasmanian false flag of Port Arthur.
Oh, right, where
and
they took the guns.
1994 in Port Arthur, and that mass murder, and that was a government operative assassin that mass murdered 35 people, and they blamed that poor kid Martin, I forget his last name. Arthur Martin Bryant. Martin Bryant. You didn't have to finish typing out. Martin Bryant. Blame that kid. He's got 60 IQ. In no way, shape, or form did he do that. And that was the beginning. The prime minister there, I'll come up with that. John, it'll come back to me. The prime minister there just happened to be in New York City on 9/11, by the way. So anyway, the bottom line is they've already had their ability to fight back ripped from them. There are no guns left in Australia, no guns left in New Zealand, because the constant false flags. So for any people still left in America, this is a huge battleground. Don't give an inch and don't surrender to these fraud organizations like the NRA that was run by that Roman Catholic milquetoast Wayne LaPierre for decades, and his job was to fold like a lawn chair at every single juncture. It has everything to do with who monopolizes coercive force. The Second Amendment there is part of the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is meant to be a bulwark against tyranny. It has nothing to do with hunting. It has nothing to do with personal defense from a robber in your home. It has to do with fighting tyrannical government. And if that's true, and it is, then you should have the exact same level of tool the government is going to come after you with.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And fight for that, and don't give it up. And you've mostly given it up already. We have very little left. But fight those battles right here and right now. Guys, it's getting close to midnight here. I'm gonna duck out pretty soon.
Thank you, Johnny, for joining us.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Love you guys. It's absolutely my pleasure. It's a real pleasure to meet you, James and Will, and anything. I'm so glad that I was here for my dear friend Sean. I'm here for you anytime you need me in the future, guys.
Wonderful.
Nice meeting you, Johnny.
We'll meet again soon, brother. Thank you.
So glad
much.
you
excellent stuff, bro.
I'm so glad you could be here to join us. Thank you again.
Thanks, Sean. Take care.
Bye.
Yeah,
Wow,
I got a few more minutes myself, but I wanted to say something after Johnny was explaining that. That's great. People need to understand the predator class. These fuckers plan not 1 year, not 2 years, not 10 years in advance, 50, 100 years in advance. They have long-term goals. They're thinking generationally, right? Their kids and their offspring are going to accomplish their will at a certain time way in the fucking future. We need to get in that mindset where we are thinking long-term. Yes. I mean, both short-term and long-term, right? But we need to start thinking generationally.
That's why they're attacking our kids. That's exactly it. They're attacking our kids because they're attacking our future.
Yes.
And that's the core self of us, is what we generate and bring into this world. Like, if we allow that to be attacked, if we give up our kids to the Moloch sacrifice, then, they own the world. So I just want to say thank you to Johnny for joining us. I guess, Will, I don't know if you still have any more time to join us. I got another slight clip about the TikTok challenges. I just want to put this on the screen for people to see it before it's over. All right. For the listeners, this is a list of the TikTok challenges, and they have them rated up to the most dangerous, and it's moving along the line of the dangerous, and it gives a description of each one. And the Tide Pods is one of them, and the penny on the electrical socket is another one. And we've heard about these, and it's good to have them all laid out. So I wanted to put this on the screen for everybody. And I know that a lot of people are listening. Please just bear with us. We can't speak while the thing is playing. So here we go again. Oh, it starts it from the beginning. Okay, just trust me. It's a long list of them. And at the end, the last one is the person covers themselves with lighter fluid and plays with fire. I
I've
mean,
heard about that.
it's crazy what they're doing.
I think a lot of those challenges are, are psyops. They're put out
Exactly.
there on purpose. Absolutely.
That's right. Yeah.
That's it's crazy, man. It really is crazy that there's a disconnect in just, I mean, what makes us human is that the neocortex, that capability of doing logic and reason. It's just,
Right.
I don't know, man.
Kids don't have that yet. It's still developing in their brains.
Absolutely correct.
So they
Yeah.
don't have the ability to think ahead and so if they attack them with this thing in their pocket that's giving them the psyop every 30 seconds, they're flipping to a new one. It's just like an attack on their heads. Every
Yeah.
time the kid is on the phone, it's creating anxiety. And that anxiety is soothed by medication. And that medication makes somebody a zombie slave to the system. It's all one big slavery funnel of like typhoon of evil. Yeah.
It's yeah, absolutely, man. And the octopus, the arms, right? It's
Right.
just, I mean, you bring in the pharmaceutical industry and all this. It's all connected.
Right. It's
It's
all an orchestra. It all orchestrates together. And we can see the patterns if we're aware and if we accept the black pills, if we're ready to digest them, then we will be able to see the truth and act on the truth in the moment when it's necessary, to have the tools to stand for your own rights and those that you love. And the evil will crumble. I don't know if anybody wants to say anything on that. I guess that just kind of like I hit a big one. That was over the park. Whoa, see it.
You nailed it, man. I
Right.
mean, ultimately is, black pilling is good.
Right.
It's healthy to have this kind of awareness. And then ultimately, like what Mark Passio coins, the gold pill, which is action, right action. And this is what, true, real spiritual holiness is right action.
That's right.
And so
It happens in the
great
moment.
episode.
Man, I'm so glad. I am so glad that you could join us, Will. And your show is a great show, and we kind of took your spot on like for tonight. We are broadcasting, or I guess the broadcast is down, but we are so glad that you
It's
could
been
join us.
fixed recently.
It has been.
It'll be back up this week.
Okay, great.
On the
And
One Great Work Network. Yeah.
tell us about your show a little bit before you go.
Yeah, so my partner John and I, we do a video podcast called Natural Freedom League. We took a little bit of a break towards the end of this year. We both have a lot of individual content and work that we're doing and we're focusing on, but we're going to start doing kind of random episodes here and there. So it's not going to be, a consistent format. But we'll probably do one every 1 or 2 weeks. So we're kind of
Right.
playing it by ear, but definitely focusing on individual work. I got 2 websites I'm about to launch in the beginning of next year. One is just going to be a presentation series of natural law, rights, true freedom, pretty much from the foundation base level all the way up to a higher awareness. That's kind of like a course that one can take. And the other website is going to be directed to conscious parenting. A lot of good resources in there, and some vital principles that parents can use, and what I've learned in my own personal life, teaching my daughter natural law principles and stuff like that, man. So looking forward to the new year.
That's awesome. God bless you. I'm so thankful that you have these plans for the future. I can't wait to see your creations and what you do with your work, because you really understand the truth and your voice is being implemented in the right way. And I want to give you as much of I highly applaud what you're doing with your life, and I hope that you have an unhindered future where your voice can be broadcast loud to the world. And I'm so thankful that you could join us here today.
That's awesome, brother. I really appreciate it. James and Sean, your guys' work is fantastic, and I support what you guys are doing, and look forward to collaborating in the future.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Oh, that'll happen.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
No doubt. No doubt.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
we'll be seeing one another around.
This is great. I'm so glad that we could have had this show. And James, do you have anything? You have a show yourself. We want to talk. What's your show, please?
My show.
Tell us about your work, your own personal work.
I will.
Okay.
All right. My
Sorry.
show. It's all right. It's late. You're getting into the sunset hours. I know how old guys work. So it's my show is called A Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth. You can find it. You can find it and all of the rest of my work at freeyourmindne.com. My name is James Cordiner, and I'm usually broadcasting at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Saturday night, and various guests and topics, and it's a neat show. We've been doing it for quite a while now, and just started our third year of podcasting, so we're really getting some legs under us, and it's great. So yeah, come on over to my website, check it out, and see for yourself what we do. Last week Aaron Butler joined me, and we talked about order followers for about 3 hours. So that's kind of a long format conversation that I like to have, because 5 minutes here and there is not really fleshing too much out. So, you can find a lot of material. Will has been on my show a bunch of times. Sean's been on my show a bunch of times. Now Sean and I are doing our own show here together, this is fantastic. Yeah. So, you can find, I'm going to start uploading the backlog of these videos to Free Your Mind NE as well. That way there's a place where you're not reliant on like a YouTube. You can find it on Odyssey and anything. And I have some interesting ideas for the future. So everyone, please pay attention, subscribe, like, and subscribe to the channels, and make sure that you can stay up to date with our broadcasts here with Black Pill Digest. And if this is what you like, and go check out some of my solo stuff, and maybe you like that too, and you'll be able to keep up with me on that stuff as well. So I'm really excited.
Cheers,
Sean, this is an awesome. We had a fun time the first episode, and like this is just like wow, like bam, like you came with right, and then you get the it's like
we're hitting the truth. That's great. I'm so glad that we could have this show together, and I'm so thankful that we have this voice so we can speak to the world, and we have this we are able to capture it, and others can hear it. These things that we're saying today and are very important for the future, because we are the ones. We need to be programming morality and understanding of truth to the next generation. True. We need to intercept their transmission with the truth, and we need to keep them safe. Like, Will was kept safe by, having parents that cared for him and told him and then he's not going to think to kick out the legs of someone else. The Satanism attacks those that are damaged, and it happens first with parents. And so that is the real work that we need to do, is to be good parents and to teach our kids what is right and when to stand up for our rights. And that's great. I love your show, James. Yeah.
Well said, man.
Thank you. Yeah, man. Well said indeed. Well said, and it really does come down to learning the fundamental difference between right and wrong action, harnessing our free will, realizing our potential, and using our free will with the recognition of the difference between right and wrong action, and choosing to do the right thing.
That's right.
No matter what, no matter the cost. Yeah. Simply just because it is the right thing to do, not because you're expecting a reward, folks, but just because it's the right thing to do.
Because then you won't have the memory of them stealing your baby away, as you just stand there and your wife is screaming like help, and you just stand there, and that's in their memory forever. I would rather have the memory of being beaten by a cop, that doesn't harm me for the future. I can deal with the clubs and the batons, but I don't want to have that regret that they took my kid away. They did whatever they're going to do to it. They take them to foster care and they use them. They sell them to pedophiles. There's the federal government is taking Guatemalan kids at the border and then placing them in the pedophiles' homes here in America. It's like a system. And, this is being revealed. The children are a currency and they are using it because money doesn't exist anymore. Money has no value. So what has value is gold, drugs, people, like their organs, their bodies as slaves. That is money now. And
Blood.
people need to be aware.
Yeah.
That's right. And the blood.
Yep. The life force is in the blood. It's been known through all ancient cultures and stuff, man. Absolutely. One of the main reasons why I do this work and talk, speak truth and talk about freedom and morality. One, because it's the truth and it's the right thing to do. But also, I want my daughter, when she grows up, I want her not to ask, but I want her to know that I was fighting for this. I was fighting for freedom. And that's a huge motivating factor for me.
That's beautiful. I'm so glad you said that. That's very heartwarming. And that is what they create themselves as they see you. And if they see you comply with authority and they just took my little brother away to go put vaccine and my parents just watched it happen and the cops are standing there, then it trains them to think oh, I guess authority matters, and then it's just slavery from there, because if you believe in authority, then they are, the evil ones are going to say that they're authority. It's one and the same, there is only free will. And, we can choose wrong and we do it so often, but it takes we need to follow our care. Right. And that's what James was saying there. If we put our care as the principle that guides us instead of money, then nobody's going to just be doing their job. That won't exist anymore.
Exactly, dude. Word, man.
Yeah.
Word.
That's great. I just wanted to tell everybody that they can hear me. I do a show called Wake the Dead, and I don't have a regular schedule. But you can find my RSS feeds on the Odyssey channel. You can find Wake the Dead on Odyssey, BitChute, Rumble, and you can find it on all the Spotify and Google and all those other ones too. And, I talk about what's important, and I frequently have guests that help, bring to light certain topics that people need to be aware of. That's why I'm so thankful to have this new show here with James, because then we can really focus and we can have even more voices. I really am proud of what we're doing. And, I'm thanking you, James, and thank you, Will, for joining us. And
my pleasure, man. I'm excited to see where the Black Pill Digest goes. And I know you guys are going to have awesome content. So
that's
looking forward to it.
That's right. God bless you. Thank you for joining us.
It was us three right after the Seed conference last year. That's what kind of aside from me hanging out with Ivan and them, but with the three of us had a talk a little over a year ago. And that's kind of it's just I'm just reminiscing about that right now. It's just a little deja vu kicking in about wow, this is kind of a resetting of how my real initiative to keep podcasting really kind of took.
That's right. Yep. See what
the sales was the three of us sitting down having a conversation. I was like, all right, yeah, we're doing this.
That's great. A revisiting and a reamp. I love it. That's good. That's good little synchronicity.
That's why I'm so excited for the future, because you guys are engaged and you're doing the work and you're putting your voice out there. And I look forward to what creations are in the future. And
Yeah.
I'm so glad that we've captured this for others to listen to forever. We're going to put this out for free, and we want everybody to take this black pill and understand that it's up to them to stand up and protect your kids.
That's right, man. So that's perfect to a perfect word to part on. So we'll catch all of you guys at a later date. We're going to be back sometime mid-January. So keep your feelers out there, keep your eyes open and your ears open, and you'll be hearing back from us real soon. So we love you all. Thank you for your time and attention this evening, and we'll catch you around the bend.